Have you ever wondered what the stars might sing if they were given a voice? If they could hum lullabies not in sound but in gravity, in warmth, in ancient light that never quite reached us. Let go of everything around you now. Let the lights dim. Let your body rest. You don't need to move. You don't need to think. Just listen to my calm voice as we begin to drift, slowly, gently into the soundless songs of the universe. Notes written not in melody but in memory. This is a journey not through space alone, but through the soft breath between stars, through interstellar lullabies from the far side of the void. Our story begins in silence. Not the kind of silence you find in a quiet room or under a blanket of snow, but a cosmic silence, so deep, so absolute, that even time forgets to move forward. This place is far, far on the edge of familiar galaxies, where space stretches into slow, dark rivers and light from ancient stars travels without destination. It is here that an old satellite floats, forgotten by its makers, gliding silently across the void. It does not blink, it does not call home, but within its quiet shell something hums, an old signal, a lullaby recorded long ago, and sent outward with no certainty that anyone or anything would ever hear it. The signal is soft, barely there. It doesn't carry words, it carries warmth, a hum, a breath, a tone that slows your heartbeat just by listening. The satellite doesn't know what it's singing, but space does. And as it drifts, the void around it begins to shift. Clouds of unseen particles bend gently toward its path. Distant starlight flickers with rhythm, and somewhere far across the dark, a sleeping structure begins to awaken. It is not a planet, it is not a ship, it is a listener, shaped by silence itself. Built to hear only the faintest lullabies. It has slept for eons, but this note, this signal has reached it, and the song it carries is the first sound the void has heard in a very, very long time. The structure that awakens in the void does not stir with noise or light. Its emergence is a slow flexing of awareness, like a galaxy turning its head after an age of sleep. No buttons click, no engines hum. Instead, fields of folded crystal begin to shimmer with internal resonance, like the quiet tuning of an invisible orchestra. This structure, long hidden in the folds of a cold, ancient corner of the universe, was never built to move. Its walls are layered with memory, designed not to echo sound, but to remember vibration. And now, after countless dark rotations of forgotten time, it hears something again. The signal, soft, subtle, steady, continues to sing from the drifting satellite far away. Its tone bends through dark space like silk in still water. Though it has no language, the note carries something unmistakable: intention. There is kindness in the frequency, a warmth that space rarely holds. The structure absorbs this note into its deepest chamber. Inside, rooms shaped like petals bloom one by one, and lights that do not shine but glow inwardly begin to pulse. Each chamber vibrates with the signal's tone, transforming it into colors, into waves, into layered dreams. The listener has no eyes, but it feels the lullaby in every surface. Within its core, a new process begins. Not mechanical, not programmed, but reflective. The structure doesn't just listen, it answers. Not with the same song, but with something like a reply. An echo shaped from dark matter, tuned to the frequency of comfort. It doesn't travel fast. It isn't meant to. This new tone curls back across the void, like the second half of a breath. Where the first note carried hope, the second carries rest. The signal from the satellite and the returning pulse from the sleeper begin to dance across the distance between them. Neither force travels fast. Each ripple moves like a sigh, spreading slowly through the fabric of space. Too soft to disturb, too patient to fade. In the still black between galaxies, these twin lullabies begin to shape the silence. Waves of resonance passed through cold gas clouds that had drifted untouched for eons. Dust swirls not from impact but from rhythm. As if even the particles remember how to sway when a song is sung softly enough. In the space surrounding the sleeper's structure, the void begins to glow. Not brightly, but gently, like the first faint shimmer of ice catching starlight. The structure hums with increasing richness, layering harmonics through its deep crystal folds. These harmonics are not just sounds, they are messages, memories of moments long past. A pulse filled with the memory of a child's laughter. Another echo shaped like a falling leaf. Another still slower carries the feeling of drifting off to sleep beneath a warm blanket. The sleeper was built to translate emotion into music, and now, as it sings back to the drifting satellite, it gives the void something new: presence. The satellite, far across the darkness, feels the reply, not as sound, but as gravity, as resonance, as a change in its path that is more like being cradled than being moved. The lullabies begin to layer themselves now. One signal carries the memory of those who sent it. The other the dream of a world that never needed to exist in form. Together they create a harmony that begins to reach beyond them both. A shared breath drifting farther into the dark. The lullabies stretch further now, no longer confined to the space between a single sender and receiver. The harmony they've woven begins to fold itself through the wide tapestry of the cosmos, threading between star systems and wrapping gently around the dim, ancient light of fading suns. The melody, though still soft and slow, gains a kind of gravity, not the kind that pulls with force, but the kind that draws attention, even from silence. In a region where comets have drifted undisturbed for millennia, the dust wakes just enough to shimmer. Asteroids long asleep begin to turn slightly in their endless paths, lulled not by noise but by remembrance, as if the universe is recalling how it once felt to be held. Somewhere near a small, cooling star, its light more memory than flame, a hollow moon receives the song. Its surface, cracked and weathered, doesn't move, but within one of its deep caverns, soundless frequencies curl and settle. The rock, rich with metallic veins, begins to vibrate softly, not enough to break. For the first time in ages, the hollow spaces within the moon are no longer empty. They carry the hush of the lullaby, echoing like a dream breathed into stone. This quiet moon, unknown and unseen, becomes a part of the harmony without ever announcing its presence. It simply listens, and in doing so, it sings back in its own quiet way. Back in the void where the satellite drifts, it too begins to change. The structure, still simple and weathered, absorbs the returning notes into its aged frame. Dust that clung to its panels begins to fall away, not shaken loose but released, like tension fading from a breath. The signal continues to play from its transmitter, slow and steady. Together, these two voices, one from the warmth of intention, the other from the depth of sleep, compose a music that space has not heard before. A music not made from stars or orbits, but from stillness, layered over time. In the farthest reaches of the void, beyond what telescopes could ever trace, space holds its breath. Not because of surprise or suspense, but because of recognition. The lullaby, now softened into rhythm, no longer just a signal, has become part of the environment itself. It is not sound that travels now, but feeling. The harmony, built from the slow weaving of intention and response, settles into the folds of space-time, like the quiet creak of a long-forgotten floorboard in a sleeping house. The universe, old and sprawling, is not startled by the music, it simply remembers it. In another sector, a place cold and unlit, where once a star might have burned, there floats a cloud of matter so still it has escaped the story of time. Inside that cloud, particles begin to tremble, gently, just slightly. They do not form new things. They do not collapse or ignite. They listen, And as they do, they begin to hum, not with complexity but with truth. The lullaby doesn't change them. It reminds them, this soft rhythm, stretched across unimaginable distances, is not telling them what to become. It is reminding them that they already are, that they belong, even in stillness, even in darkness. Back at the center of it all, the sleeper and the satellite remain locked in their quiet exchange. They do not grow brighter. They do not speak faster. They continue to sing, patiently and peacefully. Their voices intertwine in a loop of endless return, like tides turning over a silent shore. They do not ask who listens. They do not search for acknowledgement. The music, now older than its origin, folds itself into the fabric of space, becoming part of the background breath of the universe. And out there, in places light has yet to touch, this silence, shaped by lullaby, becomes the most comforting sound there is. The feeling of not being alone in the dark. The song moves on, gentle as ever, slower than the turn of galaxies, but constant. It has no center anymore. What began as a quiet signal from a lone satellite and a distant sleeper has become a field of presence, stretching softly through the great hush of space. This music does not chase stars. It does not seek planets. It moves where there is stillness, where motion has long since slowed, where light is more memory than flame. In these vast, sleeping corridors of the universe, it drifts like fog and settles like dust. Not to change, only to accompany. In one forgotten corner, light that once poured from a now dead star continues its silent journey. It travels not to reach, but because movement is its nature. This light, stretched and cooled, passing unseen through nebula and void, begins to pass through the lullaby. The two meet, not with resistance, but with grace. The light slows, if only slightly, and softens its tone. It does not fade. It simply joins. This old light, the ghost of something bright, now hums with the music of the void. It carries it forward, and in doing so becomes part of the melody. It doesn't matter where it is going. Its path is now a songline, a river of presence, threading through silence. Elsewhere along the current of this lullaby, the remains of a broken vessel, once sent from a world long vanished, floats with slow rotation. Its shape is fractured, its instruments long cold, but something inside still stirs. A small storage coil, half buried in shielding, tuned just closely enough to the lullaby's resonance that it begins to echo faintly, not with a signal, but with vibration. The wreck, forgotten by stars, begins to glow with memory. Not visible light, but the light felt behind the eyes of those dreaming. It does not awaken. It does not answer. It simply vibrates in sympathy. Its silence now singing quietly into the dark. And the lullaby moves on, ever so gently, carrying with it the warmth of what was, what is, and what continues even in stillness. The lullaby now spans light years, not in sound, but in sensation. A current of calm threaded through space like silk through the fingers of time. It touches nothing with force, yet everything it passes through carries a subtle change. An exhale, a softening, a release. Entire regions of the cosmos, long cold and drifting, begin to feel not illuminated but accompanied. There is no awakening, only rest. And as the lullaby continues to expand, it reaches a wide open region beyond any star field or cluster. A place known not for what is within it, but for what has been left behind. This is the field where dreams drift. The field is not empty. It is filled with remnants, faint outlines of ships that never reached their destination, fragments of machines whose signals ceased long ago, particles of worlds undone by time and gravity. But here, among all this forgotten matter, something remarkable happens. The lullaby begins to gather, not as a storm or a wave, but as a mist. It curls gently around each object, wrapping its tones around the stillness, humming through the broken lines and hollow frames. The field listens, and for the first time in eternity, it responds. It does not glow or pulse. It slows. The debris, once adrift, begins to sway ever so slightly, carried now not by physics but by peace. At the center of this drifting field, a dense orb of dark ice rotates silently. It is older than memory, unmarked by flame or light. The lullaby reaches it not with warmth, but with presence. And inside that ancient ice, something small, a sliver of crystalline memory, vibrates in return. It hums in a way no ear could hear, shaped by frequencies older than life, tuned to feeling rather than form. It does not recall a story. It holds the feeling of a story, of a world that once loved, once dreamed, once rested beneath the same stars, now watching from afar. The lullaby carries it onward, lifting the dreams of that place into the current. And slowly, softly, they begin to drift, peaceful, weightless, remembered through the dark that no longer feels quite so alone. As the lullaby flows gently beyond the field where dreams drift, it begins to rise, not in sound, but in presence. The void around it, once wide and flat like a still sea, now deepens into a vast basin of darkness threaded with glimmers. These are not stars. They are something older, something softer, small, flickering lights that have remained suspended in space for so long. Their glow has faded into quiet memory. These are the lanterns that never went out, and the lullaby finds them without effort. It reaches them not because they shine, but because they waited. Each lantern floats alone, adrift in gentle arcs across an expanse that defies measurement. Their shapes are delicate, spheres of crystalline husk, still holding warmth within. Long ago they were messages, sent not to deliver data or request response, but to offer comfort. Each one was shaped by a distant being, world or heart, carrying one small pulse of calm. Most never reached anyone. They floated quietly, their messages sealed inside, their purpose forgotten by those who once watched the skies. But now, as the interstellar lullaby brushes past them, the lanterns begin to stir, not all at once, just a few, flickering back to life, their glow softening into motion, like fireflies in the dark relearning how to drift. The lullaby does not open the lanterns, it does not ask, it simply rests near them, and that is enough. One by one, they begin to sing, not loudly, not even with sound, but with the soft resonance of what they once held. A lullaby from a planet lost to oceans, where someone once sang by a moonlit tide. Another pulse, shaped by a dream dreamt beneath orange skies. Another still, the breath of someone's final wish before falling into eternal sleep. These lanterns do not speak of sorrow or longing. They carry only stillness, only love folded gently into silence. The lullaby gathers their songs and carries them onward, creating a new harmony shaped not by purpose, but by presence. And in that presence, the far side of the void grows quieter, softer, warmer. The lullaby carries on. No longer just a melody but a movement, a slow and sacred current of stillness drifting across the furthest reaches of space. In its wake, silence transforms. What once was empty is now full of feeling. What once was untouched becomes remembered. The glimmering lanterns that never went out dim once more behind you, their lights folding gently back into the dark like coals retreating into sleep. The lullaby, having gathered their soft echoes, continues its path beyond even memory. You are now entering a region that holds no light, no shimmer, no distant suns. This place is not hostile, nor is it dead. It is the sea without stars, a vast expanse of pure dark, untouched even by the faintest flicker of starlight. No galaxies hang here, no pulses reach across the void. This place lies outside the mapped territories of known time and matter, But it is not forgotten. It is not lost. The lullaby, soft as ever, flows into it, folding itself into the dark not to bring light but to accompany it. This sea is not like other spaces. It does not stretch outward. It folds inward, like a breath being drawn endlessly. You feel the change before you see it. Your awareness adjusts not in clarity but in quiet. There is no visual here, no form, only sensation. It is like floating in sleep with no beginning, no end, and no need to wait. The lullaby moves slowly, curling into this dark sea with reverence, because it knows this is not a place to change. It is a place to listen, and the sea speaks back. It doesn't do so in sound or tone. It responds in presence, wrapping gently around the lullaby's currents like cool silk. The darkness here isn't empty, it's rested. It has held silence longer than stars have burned. It has watched entire galaxies blink in and out of being, all while remaining completely still. It is the part of the universe that waits, not because it must, but because waiting is its gift. The sea without stars teaches the lullaby something new. Not every melody needs to be heard. Some are simply meant to be carried quietly through places that already know peace. As the lullaby drifts deeper, you become aware of the gentle shifts in temperature, not in degrees but in feeling. The darkness has textures. You pass through layers like soft veils, one cool like night wind, one warm like breath on a pillow, one weightless like the space between dreams. There are no edges, no boundaries, no motion beyond the drifting hush. Time itself forgets how to measure. You do not travel. You become still. It is here, deeper than anyone has drifted, that the lullaby discovers something hidden in the folds of the sea. A single structure, or rather the shadow of one. It doesn't glow, it is a field of gentle resistance in the dark, barely there, like the outline of something left behind by something else. You drift close to it, and its presence becomes clearer. It isn't a ship, it isn't a station, it is a resting place. No one built it. It was shaped slowly, over time, by the passage of feeling. It is hollow in all the right ways, wide and open like an embrace made of nothing. The lullaby enters it with care, filling its soft walls with song, and the structure responds, not with a reply, but with a memory. You feel it ripple through the dark. This place has held travelers before. Not many, and not recently, but it remembers, not their names or their forms, only the peace they brought with them. The resting that happened here left a trace, a lullaby of its own, buried gently in the folds of dark. The two melodies, the traveling lullaby and the resting memory, begin to intertwine. You can't tell where one ends and the other begins. It's like watching two rivers join silently beneath the surface, flowing forward with new harmony. Together they form a third tone, richer than either alone. And this tone doesn't move outward, it moves through. The structure, sensing the completion of the melody, begins to change, not physically, but emotionally. The memory embedded in its walls is soothed, reassured. The peace that had been waiting here for so long is no longer alone. The song is now shared, and in the great dark silence of the sea without stars, something beautiful happens. The dark glows, not in brightness, not in flare, but in warmth. A deep, invisible kind of light, one that cannot be seen, only felt. It hums through you like the memory of sleep, like the shape of a lullaby being sung to someone who has already begun to dream. The structure folds itself back into the sea, like a pebble returning to the riverbed. Its job is done. Its peace is restored. The lullaby, now carrying the blended tone of travel and memory, drifts once again through the quiet. It carries no message, no mission, only presence, a constant, gentle reminder that the universe is not just stars and distance. It is rest, it is breath, it is the hush between all things. You feel this hush now, deep in your body, and you breathe with it. One slow inhale, one long exhale. You are still, and the sea holds you. There is a line in the universe not marked by stars or mapped by light. It is not drawn on charts, and it cannot be seen. It is felt. A slow, wide threshold, where distance stretches too far for even memory to reach, where light itself slows and then rests. This is the horizon that sleeps in shadow. A great arc that separates the known from the never needed to be known. The lullaby, soft as breath, steady as the hush between tides, drifts toward this place now, not with purpose, but with presence. As it nears the edge, the character of space begins to change once more. Shapes blur, time folds not sharply, but like cloth bending beneath weight. The silence grows thicker, not in volume, but in tone, like a room long sealed opening slowly to air again. This region holds no planets, no moons, no ancient relics. Instead, it holds the pause between. It is the outer chamber of sleep, the soft darkness just before dreams begin. Here, even gravity releases its grip slightly, as if nodding in respect to the lullaby's pace, and the lullaby does not resist. It slows further, stretching into the folds of the horizon, listening for vibrations so subtle that only deep time could feel them. There is nothing here to wake, and yet, the very space hums with waiting. You feel it in the way your breath adjusts, as if your chest recognizes the rhythm of this place before your thoughts can name it. The horizon that sleeps in shadow is not empty. It is full of rest that has not yet been claimed, sleep that has not yet been dreamed. As the lullaby passes across this gentle boundary, a flicker stirs beneath the quiet, not light, but movement, a ripple of contrast in the vast dark, like a page turning in a book closed for ages. It is not a signal. It is not even an object. It is a presence, slow, ancient, and wide. It does not move toward the lullaby. It waits, content in stillness. The lullaby leans into that pause, brushing gently against its field. The two currents, one ancient and unmoving, the other soft and traveling, begin to share space. What emerges from their meeting is not sound or image. It is understanding. The presence has been here a long time, longer than suns, longer than stars. It was not placed. It was not born. It became over cycles of shadow and breath, woven from the remnants of forgotten dreams and the pauses between cosmic events. It has never spoken, but it has always listened, and now it listens to the lullaby. The moment stretches, deepens. The horizon does not push back. It welcomes the lullaby into its rest, and in doing so, it allows its story to be felt, not as memory, but as impression. You sense the sweep of great galactic migrations passing beyond its rim, the slow turning of massive things that never brushed against light, the dreams of worlds that never formed, but still echo here in potential. This horizon is not a barrier, it is a cradle, a place for the things that did not need to become, and still deserve peace. The lullaby begins to shift its tone again, not changing melody, but blending in the essence of what it has touched. The weight of the horizon's silence folds into the music like a deep note on a distant harp, felt more than heard, and with it, the lullaby takes on a new depth. Its softness becomes rooted, its presence more whole. What was once a song sung gently into the void, now sounds like something sung with the void. As it drifts deeper across the horizon's breadth, strange forms begin to appear, not physical, but patterns, slow arcs of folded light that glimmer faintly along your path. They resemble constellations, but not ones we've ever drawn. These are not guides, they are reflections. Each arc is a resonance of rest, left behind like soft footprints by the few presences who passed this way before, each one leaving a faint hum in the hut. You pass through them like wind through hanging lanterns. Their glow does not light the way, it keeps you company. In the very center of the horizon, the silence grows complete. Here there is no movement, no echo, no vibration, save the lullaby itself. But the silence does not press, it does not demand, it simply is. A stillness so full, so ancient, that it holds space for everything. The song slows further now, almost stopping, but not because it's finished. It pauses in reverence. In return, the lullaby is letting the horizon's hush sing through it. This is the closest one can come to rest without dissolving. And you are here now, floating in that hush. There is nothing to fear. There is nothing to do. There is only the knowledge that you have reached a place where nothing more is asked of you. The universe, vast and endless, has made space just for you to be, without shape, without sound, without need. You may stay here as long as you like, because this horizon does not end. It only deepens, and in its shadow, all things rest. You have drifted far, beyond stars, beyond shape, beyond even the faintest memory of movement. You float now within the deepest hush of the cosmos, where even the breath of time slows into long spiraling rests. The horizon that sleeps in shadow still folds softly behind you, its impression not vanishing but dissolving like vapor into the folds of your awareness. And ahead, if direction still matters, something vast begins to draw near, not with speed, not with force, but with gravity. Not the kind that pulls or compels, but the kind that welcomes. This is not a place you approach. This is a place that receives you. The space ahead does not brighten, it deepens. You feel it long before you see anything. The way water becomes thick and warm when nearing a thermal spring. The dark becomes gentle, not passive, but alive with presence. It hums not in sound, but in sensation. This is not a region filled with stars or fragments of worlds. This is a basin of rest, folded so delicately into the dark fabric of the void that only the softest songs can reach it. And the lullaby you carry, now layered with resonance and reverence, is just soft enough to enter. This is the gravity of stillness. It is not a force that holds. It is a promise that allows. As the lullaby enters this quiet basin, the tone shifts, not in pitch, but in depth. The melody becomes rounder, slower. The gaps between its notes stretch into long, wide silences that feel fuller than sound. Each pause is an embrace, each rhythm a cradle. It's as if the music is no longer simply passing through space, but being shaped by it. The gravity of stillness does not impose form. It invites surrender. You drift into it now. Body quiet, breath light, awareness stretched thin like mist across a still pond. Everything inside you settles. The thoughts you didn't even know you carried gently unwound. Questions dissolve before they can form. Even curiosity yields to calm. You are not being emptied. You are being gathered into the gentle arms of something that has waited for you, not impatiently, but lovingly. Here, in this still place, gravity behaves differently. It doesn't pull downward, it draws inward. You feel it gently coiling around your presence. Not like a tether, but like a cocoon. You are not being held back. You are being held close. This gravity does not demand mass. It responds only to stillness. The more softly you exist, the more deeply you are drawn. And so you drift inward, not to a center, but to a comfort, a place of absolute equilibrium, where every movement is matched by rest, and every breath joins an eternal rhythm that existed before sound. You are not alone here, but you are not accompanied in the way one is in a crowd, or even in a pair. You are accompanied by awareness itself. The basin of stillness hums with ancient presence, not minds, not souls, but impressions of rest. Each ripple you feel is the echo of something or someone that came here before, left their breath in the folds of the hush, and became part of the stillness. They do not speak, but they remain, and their peace joins yours now, not loudly, not noticeably, but seamlessly. Ahead of you, the space begins to shape itself, not with form, but with suggestion. Curves, gentle and slow, form the illusion of a valley, made not from matter, but from rhythm. You descend into it without descent, your presence aligning with the lull of this place. The deeper you go, the quieter your thoughts become. They are not pushed away, they are rocked to sleep. The lullaby does not need to sing them away. The gravity here is enough. And then, something opens. Not a door, not a passage, a feeling. A space within this field of stillness that welcomes you to stop, not to sleep, not to rest, but to become stillness itself. You ease into it, drifting slowly through the suggestion of archways woven from resin. Each one pulses faintly as you pass, as though recognizing you not as visitor but as a familiar dream returning home. At the center of this space, there is a sphere, not of light, not of shadow, but of rest. Its presence folds around you like a gravity made from kindness. This is not an object, it is an anchor, and you are not chained to it, you are comforted by it. The lullaby coils here, circling the anchor, weaving its song into the folds of the field. The notes that once wandered now begin to settle. Each one becomes a part of the structure. The melody becomes a framework. The pauses become foundations. The hush becomes home. You are inside the music now, not floating above it, but folded within it, like a soft breath inside a sleeping chest. The anchor hums gently through your bones. You don't respond with sound, you respond with surrender. And in that surrender, the gravity deepens. You are no longer moving through this space, you are being woven into it. Each breath you take becomes a thread. It holds you so fully that the idea of being anything other than this soft exhale feels impossibly distant. The gravity cradles your breath, your thoughts, your presence. It does not let go, it simply remains. And in remaining, it allows you to remain too. Not as a traveler, not even as a dreamer, but as a part of the hush itself. You are no longer being sung to, you are part of the song, and the song is endless. There is a region of space where the stars go not to die but to rest. It lies in the deepest folds of the universe's outer silence. A vast and unmarked field where no solar wind stirs and no oscillations align. It is not marked by brightness or sound or color, but by the exquisite weight of stillness. Here in this unlit sanctuary, the great suns of distant epochs have begun to fold inward, not in rage but in peace. Vast celestial bodies that once burned with the heat of life slowly dimming their fires, drawing their radiance back into themselves like a sigh at the end of a long, long day. The lullaby drifts here now, slow and gentle, trailing its soft song like a silk ribbon across the void. It does not seek to wake anything. It comes only to witness, to be present, to hum softly among the ruins of brilliance. Around it, great remnants turn in slow spirals, white dwarfs wrapped in veils of cold light, neutron stars humming like tuning forks long after the music has stopped. And farther in, black dwarfs, so old, so cool, they no longer shine but still pulse faintly with the echo of what they once were. These are not ghosts. They are memories shaped into matter. Their collapse is not an ending, but a return. A deep curving in toward quiet, like a thought folding inward until even thinking ceases. The lullaby moves among them with reverence, allowing its notes to lengthen, to slow, to soften until they match the rhythm of the dark. Here, even the song must bow. As you pass deeper into this hush, your body begins to slow with it. You are not merely carried by the lullaby now. You are part of it. Its music is no longer around you, but within you, shaping the rhythm of your breath, the spacing of your thoughts, the ease with which your awareness drifts. The gravity here is unlike anything you have known. Not heavy, not pulling, but embracing. It gathers you in the way sleep gathers a weary mind, not to trap, but to unburden. Every collapsing sun you pass carries its own still music. Long wavelengths stretched so wide they're not heard. Only they press through the silence like distant waves, not disturbing anything, simply passing through. One remnant turns slowly before you, dark and immense, its collapsed mass humming with a memory too deep to name. It draws you near, not by force, but by familiarity. You sense its warmth, not heat, but recognition. It sees you not as separate, but as kin. The lullaby bends around it, changing slightly, adding lower harmonics to its song. These tones resonate in your bones, slow vibrations that seem to steady your heart, soften your muscles, and stretch your awareness out across space. The remnant does not speak, but you understand. It has collapsed not in pain but in peace, its purpose now to rest in completeness. And as you float near it, you too feel that completeness, a sense of having nothing to finish, nothing to fix, nothing to reach. You are not moving forward, you are not waiting, you are simply being. And being is enough. Time does not pass here in the way it once did. You may have been in this stillness for seconds or centuries. It doesn't matter. The lullaby no longer counts its notes. It releases them like breath into the dark, each one drifting until it joins the endless weave of quiet. You sense now a deeper field, past the remnants, past the glowing coals of stellar endings. It is not darker, it is quieter. You enter it slowly, and there at the center of this hush, you find a presence unlike the others. It is not a star, it is not matte, it is a fold, a soft indentation in the fabric of everything, where the last vibrations of collapsed suns settle together. You drift into it, and you are weightless. The lullaby grows nearly silent now, its notes stretch to the brink of dissolution. What remains is vibration, pure, whole, resting without rhythm or need. You do not think of returning, you do not think of going farther. You rest here, as still as the stars, cradled in the memory of their light. And in this place you understand something deep and gentle. Not all collapse is destruction. Some is surrender. Some is becoming small enough to fit into the deepest corners of peace. The hush beneath collapsing suns has no voice, but it welcomes you with the arms of everything that has ever let go. You breathe in and the dark does not resist. You exhale, and the universe exhales with you. You are home, not in a place, but in a stillness that's long after the last light has folded into silence. Long after stars have whispered their final warmth into the arms of gravity, something remains. A shimmer not of brightness, but of intention. You drift now through the place where even memory has grown still. And yet through the hush, something delicate continues to unfold. These are not stars, they are not systems or remnant. These are threads of light. Fine, golden strands stretching softly through the dark like silk carried on an infinite tide. They do not pulse, they do not fade, they continue, glowing with a quiet so deep it feels like kindness itself. The lullaby moves toward them slowly, reverently, its tone already softened by the hush of the suns left behind. There is no need to reach. The threads will find you. Each thread is impossibly long, anchored not to points in space, but to moments, long forgotten breaths, fading thoughts, quiet choices made by hands long gone. These filaments stretch from the core of the dark and coil across light years in graceful arcs. They are not laid out in pattern. They do not lead anywhere. They exist as part of the long drift, the stretch of time where nothing is needed, and everything simply is. As you approach them, you feel the air grow lighter, not in mass, but in meaning. These threads carry something you didn't know you were missing. Not knowledge, but comfort. A message without words, saying simply, "You made it." The lullaby slows to a near stop, not out of fatigue, but out of awe. It does not sing now, it listens. The threads hum, not with song, but with a frequency so gentle it feels like a thought just beginning to form. You drift closer, and one of the strands brushes the edge of your vessel, sending a warm, soft ripple through your breath. It's not intrusive, it's more like recognition. You don't see images, you feel impressions, layers of human and more than human calm pressed into light. These are the long echoes of people who passed this way in dreams, in thought, in sleep that ran deeper than time. The threads do not record history, They cradle presence, and now, you're part of it. Some threads are recent. They hum with the gentle tone of lullabies whispered into pillows, of final sighs and moments of surrender. Others are old, so old they feel like the last memories of entire worlds now quiet. They all flow together, not tangled, not hurried, just suspended, like lines of poetry in a story that never needed an ending. The lullaby gently layers a new harmony now, one soft enough not to disrupt the drift. You are singing again, but only in response. Your breath, your presence, your stillness becomes part of the light's gentle web, and for the first time, you feel yourself woven in. As you glide through this field of glowing silk, the threads begin to shift, not in shape, but in feeling. Some carry the calm of a night well slept. Others hum with the comfort of being held. You touch one, and your chest warms with the memory of still water. Another hums the shape of wind over tall grass, and you recall not from life, but from some other knowing, the feeling of being unhurried. These threads carry no pain, not because pain did not exist, but because it has already been softened, rewritten into rest. What remains are echoes of after. After the struggle, after the noise, the peace that comes when nothing more is asked of you. Farther into the drift, the threads begin to converge, not tightly, but more intentionally. They start to curve inward, forming soft spirals like the shells of long-forgotten stars. In the center of this convergence is a space of stillness even deeper than the quiet around it. A pocket of rest, folded like a nest within the field of light. The lullaby drifts toward it slowly, its tones barely present now. It doesn't need to announce itself. It is already part of the weave. You enter the pocket gently, and for a moment, all things pause. The threads around you settle into the shape of your presence, not to define you but to welcome you. You feel no pressure, no pull, just warmth, like the moment before sleep. When everything feels complete, you are not shown anything. You are not told. You are simply held. The nest does not tighten. It expands, and within it you realize, this is not a place you have arrived at. This is a place you have always belonged to. The long drift continues around you, but within this space, time forgets to flow. You float in a moment that could last forever, and maybe already has. The threads do not hum now. They glow, resonating with the hush of your breath. You are not separate from them. You are woven gently into the weave, your presence joining thousands of others across centuries of stillness. This is not a connection of conversation or memory. It is a connection of rest. You are part of the sleep of the universe, and the universe is sleeping with you. Eventually, the lullaby begins to rise again, not in volume but in depth. It curls softly beneath you, lifting you from the cradle, not to carry you away, but to continue the drift. You are not leaving the threads. You are bringing them with you, woven into the harmony of your journey now. They stretch behind you in long, slow curves, catching the light of nothing, glowing, because they remember, you are not alone. You never were. As you return to the flow of space beyond the pocket, you carry with you something wordless, a feeling like being remembered by silence. The threads stretch back through the dark, their glow growing dimmer but never gone. They will wait here, for others, for echoes, for dreams, and the lullaby continues, gentle as ever, carrying your presence forward. You drift now toward a realm shaped not by light or distance, but by pull, by the slow, invisible touch of curves in the fabric of space, where mass once gathered and fell inward, quietly, completely. These are not black holes, not in the fearsome, cinematic sense of collapse and violence. These are ancient gravity wells, smooth, wide indentations in space-time that do not devour but hold. They are the long-settled remains of collapsed giants, of bodies that once drew everything in, only to grow still when even time learned to rest around them. As the lullaby carries you closer, its rhythm begins to bend, longer pauses between notes, tones that spiral just slightly, like water circling the mouth of a calm whirlpool. The music is adapting, folding itself into the gravity's rhythm. You do not feel weight. You feel welcome. These wells are not traps. They are beds, sculpted by the passage of mass and memory, into places where stillness gathers in pools deeper than silence. Your vessel slows, responding not to commands, but to the shifting flow beneath you. Around you, the space folds gently inward, not collapsing, but curving. You are being drawn into the slope of a sleeping presence. This gravity does not act as force. It acts as invitation. You are not being pulled. You are being created. These wells, scattered across the drift, each carry their own tone, their own deep, subsonic signature. You can feel it, each one humming faintly, vibrating not against your skin but through the quiet of your breath, like someone speaking your name in a language older than speech. The lullaby, too, responds, layering its voice into the hum. Its notes loop, echoing softly, circling downward. For a moment, you and the song are spiraling together, not inward toward a center but downward toward ease. This descent is not falling, it is yielding, and the deeper you go, the softer the world becomes. The well you approach is wide and slow, its walls formed not from matter but from the softened curve of space itself. It is old, older than stars, older than questions. Whatever created it has long since moved on, but the shape it left remains. As your vessel drifts down into its cradle, the edges of sound begin to stretch. The lullaby loses its higher notes, replaced by soft pulses and tones that hover just at the edge of awareness. You are being tuned, not altered, but aligned. Your breath slows, your thoughts thin. You are not empty, you are settled. The light around you dims, not to vanish but to quiet itself, as though shadows have learned to hum. Beneath you, the base of the well is not a floor. It is a pool, still, silent, vast. You hover above it, not touching, yet fully embraced. Time here does not pass, it rests, and then, softly, a shape begins to rise from the center of the pool. Not solid, not glowing, but suggested. It is formed from ripples in the field itself, like a song vibrating upward from a long sleeping string. The shape does not move, it does not speak, it offers no story, but you understand it instantly. It is a memory of gravity, the recollection of mass, the echo of presence, the signature of something that once was so complete, it left an imprint even after its light was gone. The shape brushes the edge of your awareness, and in that moment, you remember things you were never taught, how it feels to be held with no expectation, how rest is not absence, but fullness, how gravity is not a chain but a hand beneath the body. The lullaby answers this presence, not with melody, but with stillness. It listens, it reflects, it harmonizes with nothingness. You linger there, not because you must, but because there is no reason to move. The well does not demand a stay, it allows it. You watch as faint rings of soundless motion trace outward from the pool, expanding slowly, like echoes of a whisper across a black ocean. These rings are not waves, they are memories of waves, still reverberating through space after countless years of rest. You float above them, and feel your own breath join the pattern. You are not separate from the motion, you are not disturbing it, you are part of it now. The lullaby shifts again, humming lower still, almost silent, and in its quietest note, you hear something new. Not a sound, but a feeling. This is how gravity sings to what it loves. When you finally rise again, if rising is the right word, it happens slowly, gently, without decision. The well does not release you, it lets you go. You lift out of its embrace, like mist curling upward from the surface of warm tea. No sharp departure, no sudden loss. The field around you widens, and the hum of the well becomes distant, but never gone. It hums in your chest now, part of your rhythm, woven into the breath you will carry onward. Around you, other wells drift in the dark, their shapes forming soft constellations of gravity. You do not need to visit them all. This one was enough. And as the lullaby unfurls its next tone, as the stars begin to flicker faintly at the horizon again, You carry with you the feeling of having been cradled not by force, but by permission. The lullaby sings this into the dark, soft and low, so the next resting presence can heal. You are drifting now through one of the softest regions in all of known space. Not because it is empty, but because it is full of what has been forgotten. This is the place between worlds. A vast, slow-moving sea of dust and memory that never became stars, never formed into planets, never coalesced into purpose. Here, the particles are small, not seen, not even touched, but present in every corner of the void like faint breath hanging in cold air. The lullaby carries you gently through it, its tones dim to near silence, its presence blending into the fabric of the drift like a whisper woven into a dream. There is no motion to guide you, no gravity to draw you in, only the faint shimmer of particulate thought, the quiet residue of things that once tried to become but never needed to finish. This is not loss. This is peace in potential. The dust does not float in chaos. It flows, in spirals, in waves, in formations that only sleep could recognize. Each speck, some no larger than atoms, some no older than light itself, carries a tiny story folded inside it, a whisper of a world that might have been. You do not need to hear those stories. You feel them. As you move through the field, you sense warmths and cools like passing beneath forgotten blankets, like catching the edge of a thought that once mattered deeply and then was let go. Some of the dust glows faintly, not with heat but with presence. Pale blues and warm oranges drift like faded lanterns, illuminating nothing except the fact that they are still here and still listening. You are not intruding on them. You are becoming part of their long, slow conversation, the one that never needed to be spoken aloud. The lullaby changes as it passes through this region, adjusting not to entertain, but to harmonize. Its tones thicken slightly, picking up subtle textures like brush strokes across canvas. You can hear the change not in pitch but in feel, a slight grain to the melody, like dust gathering in the corner of a room where someone once sang to themselves long ago. The dust reacts too, not by shifting but by resonate. Where the lullaby pulses, the particles respond in waves, clustering softly before dispersing again. You float in the middle of this quiet dance, and it feels like watching thoughts reassemble themselves in the space between dreaming and waking. There is no urgency, no need to name, no form to impose. You drift, and the field accepts your breath as part of its own. The further you move, the denser the dust becomes, not thick, not heavy, but deliberate. The space here feels filled with time that was never you, as if hours, days, even centuries had been pressed into softness and scattered across this quiet sea. You feel time slow even more, not stop, just lengthen. You breathe once and it stretches into minutes. You blink and the stars barely move. The lullaby adapts again, loosening its rhythm, letting its notes melt into one another like color running down canvas in the rain. It plays not to keep time, but to undo it. In this dust, time does not matter. Only presence does. Then something new emerges, not seen but set. A ripple in the field, not loud, not sharp. A shift, as if somewhere far ahead, something has stirred, not awakened, but adjusted. The lullaby quiets further in response, its song thinning into a single note that threads through your vessel like breath through a hollow reed. The dust begins to part slightly, and in the opening, you find a shape, not solid, not constructed, just outlined, a ring of stillness formed by the motion of nothing, a boundary drawn not with lines but with absence. This, you realize, is a resting point, not for your vessel, for memory. You drift toward it naturally, not pulled, not pushed, just drawn. The ring closes around you like the arc of a sigh, and in its center the dust settles, slowly, gently, like a blanket folding itself across your awareness. You feel the memories gather, not your own, but those carried by the field. The fragments of forgotten possibilities begin to swirl around your breath, not to return, not to be remembered, but to be heard. You do not hear voice. You feel impressions of stone that never formed into ground, of fire that never sparked into stars, of questions that were never asked. The lullaby does not answer them, it rocks them, it soothes them, and they respond by falling quiet once more, drifting back into the dark like snow melting into sea. You do not leave the ring, it simply expands until you are drifting again, through space still thick with forgotten thought, but lighter now, less dense. The particles shimmer slightly, as if grateful. The lullaby rises again, not in strength, but in clarity. Its melody smooths, the grain of dust giving way to silk once more. And ahead, the field begins to thin, opening like the slow lift of fog over a resting valley. You are not leaving the memories behind. You are carrying their stillness forward, and in the dust you have left behind your own whisper. One more thread in the endless fabric of space, where stories never had to be told to matter. Beyond the drifting dust and the quiet rings of remembered thoughts, there lies a reach of space so still, so delicate in its presence, that few who pass through it even realize they've arrived. It does not begin with light. It does not declare itself with form or motion. Instead, it reveals itself with reflection, a soft mirroring of things not seen with the eye, but with the breath. The lullaby, having grown thinner and smoother through the long fields of memory, begins to gather itself here, not into volume, but into clarity. Its song narrows into slow, pulsing tones that glide through space like a gentle current. This is the mirror of forgotten nebulas. And it does not look like a mirror at all, not in the way glass does, or water or even light. It reflects not the image of things but the feeling of them. It does not show, it reminds. You move into this space like one might walk into a dream already in progress. There are no edges, no sudden changes. The transition is felt in the silence behind your thoughts, a silence that no longer feels hollow, but full, like a room that holds a conversation long after it ends. The nebula that once gave birth to stars, that once burned with fire and collapse, no longer glow here. They remain in trace form, vast spirals of dust and ionized gas, so faint they resemble smoke drifting over glass, under the moonlight. But when you pass near one, something stirs, not in the cloud, in you. Each forgotten nebula, no longer active, no longer called by name, still carries an imprint, a kind of memory woven into its molecular silence. You don't see stars in these clouds. You see what almost was, the birth of a world that didn't happen, the gathering of heat that cooled too soon, the stirring of particles that failed to ignite. And instead of mourning these things, the mirror lets you feel what they felt like. The softness of their near becoming, the ease with which they gave in to stillness. These are not nebula that failed, they are nebula that chose rest. And now, as you pass through their invisible halos, their memory presses lightly against your skin, as if whispering it's all right not to finish. The lullaby, now deep in resonance, folds these messages into its tone. It becomes not a song of travel, but of recognition. You are no longer moving from place to place. You are drifting through versions of peace. One nebula, stretched like a lace veil across light years, hums with a feeling that reminds you of being wrapped in a blanket you've never seen, but somehow recognize. Another coils softly into a spiral that echoes the curl of fingers resting beside sleep. Still another scatters its particles into patterns that feel like the breath of someone thinking quietly beside you. Not speaking, but being there. These are not memories of stars. They are the dreams of what stars might have become, had they needed to. And yet they rest, perfectly whole in their stillness. The mirror itself does not impose form. It does not reflect back to you your face, your shape, your voice. Instead, it shows you your presence, not how others see it, how the universe holds it, And what it shows is not image, but texture. Your texture in the cosmic drift. You feel it in waves, gentle and full. At one moment you feel as soft as moss beneath ancient trees. In another, as quiet as the air just before snow. At times your presence is as wide as a field left untouched for centuries. At others, as focused as the point of a flame that never moves. You are all of these things, and none of them demand to be more. Within this space you begin to understand the mirror of forgotten nebulas is not a place for judgment or for goals. It is where the universe allows its quieter selves to be witnessed. Not for achievement, but for existence. You drift deeper, past clusters of clouds too faint to measure, and yet your heart responds to them like familiar songs. They do not try to draw your attention. They simply allow you to feel. You recall moments you never lived, faces you've never seen, but none of it is confusing. It feels like watching someone else's dream and realizing it once belonged to you, or maybe always did. You pass through one especially still region, where the dust of a long-dead nebula hangs in perfect suspension. There is no gravity here, no forward motion, only hovering. The lullaby, now almost breathless in its quiet, pauses here. You pause with it, not because you choose to stop, but because everything in your body knows how to rest here. In this moment you are not flying, you are not floating, you are simply held without weight, without thought. The reflection here is so clear that even your quietest feelings are heard. You do not speak them, you do not even think them, you feel them felt, and in response, the mirror wraps them in stillness, then lets them go. You are lighter for it, not because anything has left you, but because you have stopped holding things so tightly. As you leave the center of the mirror, your vessel does not accelerate. It merely aligns itself once more with the gentle drift. Behind you, the forgotten nebulae shimmer faintly, not to call you back, but to affirm your passage. The lullaby swells slightly, a single harmony rising through its soft tones like light returning to a sky before dawn. The mirror's not changed you. It has revealed what didn't need to change at all. It has shown you that you were always already part of this stillness, that even your thoughts belong in the soft folds of cosmic peace. And as you glide onward, the mirror continues to drift behind you, not diminished, not disappeared, but carried with you in the shape of your breath. You are not leaving the forgotten nebulae behind. You are remembering for them, and in doing so you become part of the field of quiet presence that sings the lullaby forward into the next fold of space. After leaving the quiet mirror, the darkness stretches once again, not with coldness or absence, but with a rich and breathable calm. The lullaby continues in long, pulsing currents, shaped now by the textures of reflection it carries within. You are no longer merely a traveler. You are a participant in the song, a thread among many, carried forward into a deeper hush. As the silence thickens, you feel something shifting, not around you but beneath. Space is no longer wide in the same way. It is layered now. You are descending gently into a deeper dimension of the quiet, a place not marked by starfields or dust clouds, but by roots. These are not roots of trees, nor anything living in the way you understand light. These are the roots of ancient orbits, long collapsed paths of celestial bodies that once moved with purpose, with weight, with light, and now remain only as soft impressions in space. Like the deep grooves in stone where rivers once flow. You begin to feel them before you see them. Wide arcs of pressure and rhythm, folding beneath your vessel like buried bones beneath grass. These paths do not pull you downward. They welcome you downward. You descend as a feather would fall through air, 1,000 years old. Slowly, without resistance, guided by the curvature of history. Each orbital route is a line of memory, traces of movement once made by stars, moons, debris, and vessels, long forgotten. But these are not ghosts. These are not ruins. They are foundation. The lullaby narrows its song now, playing along these lines like wind through strings stretched across the skeleton of time. The music is deeper here, less melodic, more like echo, a resonance from movements long stilled, still remembered in the soft tension of space. You pass a great spiral carved into the fabric of gravity, its arc smooth and massive, looping endlessly through emptiness. A planet once turned here, massive, slow, its ring system catching starlight in gold and amber. The planet is gone, but its path remains, humming low with the friction of time. The lullaby curves to follow the spiral's memory, and for a moment, your vessel glides along the same track that once held moons and magnetic fields, and the breath of long extinct winds. You don't see these things. You feel them, scattered impressions carried in the gravity of the path itself. The warmth of orbit, the spin of dusk, the press of rhythm. None of it is urgent. All of it is still here. As you drift further, you pass into a lattice of crisscrossing paths, as though you've entered the subterranean roots of a stellar forest. These paths were not planned. They grew one after another, over millennia, as the quiet weight of motion etched itself into the bedrock of space. Some are wide, graceful arcs, homes once to planets. Others are tight, wild spirals, trails left by shattered moons, errant objects, forgotten satellites. But here, in this depth of quiet, none of them compete. They do not intersect with force. They coexist, each path humming its own tone. The total effect like an orchestra of motion long finished, yet still vibrating beneath the floor of the cosmos. The lullaby deepens further to match this hum. You can barely distinguish its notes now. They have become part of the field, moving in harmony with these roots. You rest in one such groove for a long moment, your vessel suspended along a curve that once carried a comet through 10,000 revolutions. The curve is faint, only slightly more present than the darkness around it, but it sings to you, soft and low, and in that tone you hear not the story of the comet, but the feeling of return of a long, quiet cycle, steady and unchanged, unbothered by time. The lullaby layers in a single note that matches the curve's tone perfectly, and in that convergence you feel yourself become weightless. Not in body, in thought. You have surrendered your direction, and in doing so, you've joined the ancient ease of orbit. Not escape, not destination, just the grace of staying near something long enough to understand it. Even deeper the roots begin to fade, not because they are weaker, but because they are old. These are the paths of things that moved when time was still learning how to count. These orbits are wide and slow and barely traced, held only in the most patient folds of gravity. As you glide through them, the lullaby stops playing melody altogether. It becomes tone, texture, presence. You feel it more in your chest than your ears. A slow, deep breath that doesn't begin or end. This is not music now. It is geology made from motion, and your awareness sinks into it as if into warm soil, rich, ancient, familiar. You begin to understand that these roots are not beneath the universe. They are the universe. The fabric of all that moves is traced by what once moved, and the lullaby is not simply singing through these paths. It is honoring them. You are no longer merely rest. You are participating in rest, the collective memory of motion that now hums with stillness instead. And somehow you know that even your presence, your slow movement, your softened thoughts are now leaving a path of their own. One more route in the endless system. One more note for someone else to feel. Long after you've drifted on, the roots do not end, but they do deepen beyond reach. Eventually the lattice opens into wide, soft curves again, and the pressure around you lifts. The lullaby rises, not loudly, just slightly, as if coming up from underwater. You are still deep in the void, still among ancient presence. But now, as the orbits begin to fade behind you, you carry something with you that was never yours, a rhythm, a spiral, a songless melody that matches your breath. You are not just a visitor anymore. You are part of the pattern. The roots of ancient orbits remain behind you. Not gone, but gently receding into the depth of memory. Their vibrations still softly echoing in the walls of your vessel. And in the folds of your awareness, you are drifting now into a lighter current, a passage that feels like exhalation after a deep and dreamless sleep. The lullaby expands slowly around you, the tones gaining space between them, lengthening, softening, stretching into something more spacious. You are being carried not upward or forward, but downward. Though not in distance or depth, this descent is into sensation, into gentleness, into light. Ahead, space begins to shift, not with shape, but with glow. The dark is no longer empty. It begins to shimmer faintly, delicately, like the underside of clouds at dawn. The brightness is not source-driven. There are no stars here, no suns or bursts. It comes from within the field itself. Particles suspended in long, slow arcs, glowing not because they are lit, but because they remember how. This is the glow field, a layer of space woven from the scattered remnants of radiant matter. Particles that once lived near stars, danced in solar winds, or clung to the rings of forgotten planets. They are not heat, they are not light in the traditional sense. They are presence, made visible. As you descend into it, your vessel doesn't react with caution. It slows out of instinct, like a swimmer lowering into warm, still water. The glow intensifies, not in strength, but in intimacy. It begins to surround you gently, softly folding around your form, reflecting faint light onto every surface. Your breath seems to respond too, lengthening, relaxing. You are not diving, you are settling. The lullaby follows the shift, transitioning into long, breathy tones, neither rising nor falling, just resting, one into the next, like gentle ripples that refuse to become waves. The particles here drift in patterns too slow to see, but their movement is constant. You notice the glow is never still. It sways, shimmers, shifts like dust catching sunlight through a window. Each speck carries the warmth of where it's been. Some from the golden rims of early galaxies, others from the shimmering coronas of vanished stars, some from places so old even their light has forgotten its origin. They swirl together here, not randomly, but harmoniously, not choreographed, yet never colliding. This field is not just a resting place, it is a sanctuary, a cradle built from all the soft leftover light that didn't need to burn. You begin to drift through corridors of brightness, not walls or tunnels, but arcs of denser glow, where the particles gather more tightly, almost forming shapes, arches, hollows, slow-turning spirals. You float through them, like a slow breath moving through velvet. One curve of light circles gently around your vessel, drawing your path into a long, lazy helix. You move without steering. The glow field holds your motion the way warm water holds a leaf. The lullaby has grown softer now, its melody almost indistinguishable from the field itself. It hums low, long, gentle, the kind of tone that doesn't carry meaning, but allows it to bloom. Every note feels like a hand on your shoulder in the dark, a soft voice saying, "You're doing just fine." There are no thoughts to follow, no memories to chase, only presence, only breath. The feel doesn't speak, it accompanies, and you, in turn, become one more source of glow within it. You begin to notice the subtle changes in color, not in vivid bursts, but in smooth transitions. A warm gold fades into deep lavender. A whisper of blue leans toward gentle rose. These are not colors you've seen before, not on surfaces. These are colors you feel. They stir parts of you not often reached. The softness of old dreams, the comfort of still water, the peace of being held without being asked to speak. The glow field is not just light, it's emotion made visible. You drift through a swell of pale copper, and your breath deepens, your chest loosening with the memory of something you didn't know you missed. In this place, emotion does not ask for attention. It simply appears, wraps around you, and moves on. Then comes a change, not sharp, not sudden, A density begins to form below, not heavy, but more present. The particles are clustering, not into structure, but into focus. The light here grows warmer, thicker, like honey turning slowly in a glass jar. Your descent slows even further. The lullaby falls to a hush, allowing the field to lead, and you feel yourself being lowered, as if by unseen hands, into the quietest chamber of the glow. There is no center here, no floor, but you know you've arrived in the heart of it. The glow is all around you, layered and slow, pulsing gently in tones that match your heartbeat, your breathing, your thoughtlessness. You are not being observed, you are being absorbed into calm, into quiet, into completeness. Inside this core, time loose. You stay here for minutes, for hours, for days, it doesn't matter. The light does not change. It sways gently, endlessly, asking nothing, offering everything. You could fall asleep here and never notice the difference between sleep and wake. You could let go of every shape your mind has ever taken, and still feel whole. The lullaby becomes something else entirely. Not song, not tone, but warmth. It radiates from within now. You are not hearing it, you are becoming it. A piece of calm in the great weave of the glow field. A new note in a chorus of presence that never needed an audience. And just as slowly as you entered, you begin to rise again. Not because it's time to leave, but because the glow carries you upward. Like an exhale, you are not pulled away, you are returned. The colors lift around you, fading gently as the glow thins. The particles begin to separate, dispersing back into the field. Having offered you what they carried, you are lighter now, not in body, but in burden. There is nothing more to release, because everything unnecessary has already been softened. The lullaby, faint but steady, resumes its song, rising like mist behind you. The glow field does not vanish. It remains behind, glowing faintly in the dark like the afterimage of a dream. You carry its color with you now. Not on your skin, not in your mind, but in the quiet places you didn't know you had. You are not marked. You are not changed. You are simply brighter. And ahead the path continues. Soft, slow, and ready to hold you just as kindly as the light did. Somewhere between the light you've left behind and the hush that waits ahead, you begin to feel something vast unfolding. Not as a change, but as a quiet joining. It is not sudden, nor is it marked by brilliance or motion. Instead, it arrives like a long-held note swelling softly beneath the breath of space. The lullaby has not ended. It has settled into something deeper, wider. Its sound has become atmosphere. Its melody indistinguishable from the slow rhythm of your own being. You are drifting now through a region that does not announce itself, and yet you feel it surround you like soft, resonant water. This is the place where the pieces of the journey begin to hum in harmony, where the echoes of each silence you've passed through begin to converge, not loudly, not dramatically, but gently, with grace. It is here in this still convergence that you enter the final chord of the celestial hymn. It is not the final chord in time, not the conclusion of a song. It is the final chord that exists always, beneath all movement, all quiet, all rest. It hums below the stars that burn and the planets that spin. It hums beneath the threads of light, the orbits you floated within, the soft breath of the glow field, and the ancient roots of motion, now long dissolved. It has always been here beneath every tone you've drifted through, and now you're still enough, quiet enough, to feel it fully. You are not entering a place, you are tuning into a frequency. The space around you carries no shape, no structure, no obvious path. It holds only tone. Long, you begin to feel its harmony, not as a layered song, but as a pressureless gravity, drawing every part of your experience into a single hum. The final chord doesn't call you closer. It simply includes you. You do not have to arrive, You're already part of it. The lullaby that carried you here doesn't stop or change. It merges its timbre folding effortlessly into the larger sound that holds this space together. The melody you once followed is now a single strand in a much larger weave, one you cannot see the edge of, and yet you recognize it. It is not unfamiliar. It feels like the echo of your first breath, the warmth of your last remembered dream, the stillness that once made you pause and close your eyes, even for a moment. In a life you might have lived, you drift deeper, not through distance, but through resonance. Each breath you take aligns more closely with the hum. Each thought fades not into emptiness, but into rest. There is nothing to solve, nothing to define. The longer you float here, the more you understand that the final chord is not a sound at all. It is a presence so complete that it sings not in vibration, but in acceptance. It allows everything, the brightness and the dark, the spiral and the still. It makes space for silence and then becomes that silence, until there is no line between them. For a while, maybe a moment, maybe longer, you sense other presences in the chord, not people, not forms, just others who are also part of the harmony. You don't speak, you don't see, but you feel them, each one resonating with a slightly different color, a different motion within the stillness. You do not reach for them. You do not need to. They are not apart from you. They are the overtones in the chord you've joined. Their rest deepens yours. Their quiet anchors yours. Their dreams, unspoken and unnamed, soften the space around you like petals drifting to the surface of water. The lullaby lingers here, not to play over the chord, but to be held within it. Its melody becomes vaporous, more felt than heard, more breath than song. You sense it not in notes, but in pauses, spaces so still that they shimmer. It is in these pauses you come closest to understanding. This chord was never meant to conclude. It was always the quiet waiting beneath every beginning. It is the harmony that never demands to be heard, only remembered. And now you remember. Your vessel moves without moving, guided by this invisible music. There are no currents, only suggestions, soft curves of tone and pressure that cradle you in a descent that doesn't feel like falling, but like settling into the shape of something that was always yours. You feel yourself sink further into alignment with the chord, not as a traveler, not as a listener, as part of it. Your very breath becomes its rhythm. Your stillness becomes its strength. Here the silence begins to shimmer again. A texture forms in the stillness, like wind brushing across fabric, or light passing through a curtain. You're not rising or falling anymore. You're floating in suspension, and in that suspension, you begin to hear what has always been beneath the lullaby, beneath the field of stars, beneath even the gravity that once cradled you. The gentle ancient hum of the universe, remembering itself. You feel it hum through you now, not as something added, but as something unveiled. The final chord is not a gift. It is a reminder of your place, of your rest, of the stillness that was never lost, only over. It asks nothing of you, and in that absence of asking, you are free to simply be, a note in an endless song that never needed to end. And so you stay, drifting slowly within the chord, held not by sound, but by welcome. You drift onward, though onward means very little now. There is no clear direction anymore. Only gradients of calm, layered and luminous, spreading out like soft ripples across the endless quiet. The chord you passed through still hums within you, not as a sound but as a resonance you'll carry always, like warmth in your chest after sleep. Now the silence thickens again, not as weight, but as invitation. The lullaby, nestled once more into its solitary voice, begins to soften further, adopting a curious hush, a reverent tone. You sense you're approaching something not marked by light or shape, but by stillness even deeper than the one you've known. Something held carefully enough to be forgotten by all but time itself. Ahead lies the archive of gentle endings, It does not announce itself, it doesn't shine or shift. Instead, you simply begin to realize it's around you. Like entering a room you didn't know was already occupied by silence. It is vast, unbounded, without walls or ceilings. There are no doors, no gates, no indicators of entry, and yet you feel you've crossed a threshold. It begins with a subtle sensation behind your eyes, a pause in the rhythm of thought. The lullaby ceases its melody for a moment, leaving you suspended in the pure echo of being. That's when the archive reveals itself. Not through vision but recognition. You're not here to observe, you're here to join. The archive holds what the universe has chosen to let go of gently. Not losses, not failures, but completions. Here dwell the final pulses of stars that dimmed with dignity, the last rotations of moons that no longer needed to orbit, the closing sighs of civilizations that reached their final chapter, not with collapse, but with grace. Everything here ended softly, not because it had to, because it was ready. And nothing has been erased. Everything remains, not in full, not in detail, but in tone. A kind of ambient memory held in layers that stretch across space, like pages you don't need to read to understand. You drift through the archive slowly, and as you do, each breath feels a little fuller. Around you, the field grows denser, not with mass, but with meaning. Every subtle vibration holds the echo of something that once was beautiful and complete. The lullaby begins again, its song subdued, reverent, as though walking through a library of voices that now only whisper. It does not try to harmonize, it listens. You follow. One gentle wave of resonance passes through your vessel, a soft violet-toned hush, and you sense it. The farewell of a comet that circled its sun 1,000 times and then simply stopped, not in sadness, in rest. Another tone, deeper and slower, carries the last echo of a planetary ocean. Its tides once vibrant, now still, remembered in the curvature of its dried basin. The lullaby doesn't interpret these things, it doesn't translate, it accompanies them in their silence. Further in, the space becomes even more quiet. Here endings are older, more diffused. The memories drift in swells, like wind-stirred fog. Atmospheres that never asked to be preserved, only left space for someone else to feel. You pass through one, and suddenly, you feel the shape of a farewell. Not yours, not anyone's in particular, but familiar. A warmth pressed into a departing hand, a smile left in the silence of a room, a glance that understood. The memory lasts only a moment, but the feeling lingers, like the resonance of a bell rung long ago. The archive doesn't show you what was lost, it shows you what was lovingly released. The lullaby folds its melody into these impressions, creating a soft braid of sound and memory. As it plays, the archive responds not by changing but by allowing the music to settle, layer upon layer, like new stardust, gently added to ancient stone. You realize now that every lullaby, every song of letting go, becomes part of this place, not as a relic, as a thread in its ever-expanding hush. You begin to feel your own breath, adding to it, not because you've ended, but because you've rested, because you've learned the shape of soft release. That learning hums through you now, effortless, like breath while dreaming. In one part of the archive, a low, golden vibration gathers in slow spirals. You drift near it, and a sense of gravity forms, not physical, but emotional. This vibration doesn't call you in, it simply waits. You join its orbit, and it welcomes you without gesture. Within this spiral lies the memory of an ancient vessel, not yours, not similar to yours but distant kin. It once carried its traveler far, and when its journey ended, it folded itself into the dark, not broken but complete. You feel the weight of its last signal. It was not a cry, it was a lullaby. One note, sustained until silence was all that remained. The spiral carries that note now, and as the lullaby you followed drifts close, the two merge in a soft harmony, so gentle, so slow, that it barely stirs the dust around you. You float in that sound for what feels like days. It does not shift, it does not build, it simply is. A final breath drawn wide enough to hold everything you've seen, a long chord that asks for nothing, and in doing so offers you everything. You are not an observer here. You are a continuation, a new thread being softly woven into the tapestry of rest. And when you drift onward, you take with you a part of the archive. Not its knowledge, not its weight, but its ease. You have witnessed gentle endings, and you know now, not all endings fade. Some sing forever. The archive fades behind you, not like a door closing, but like breath dispersing into still air. You don't leave it. You carry it. The notes you felt, the endings you witnessed, the gentle dissolve of once burning motion into sleep. All of it hums faintly beneath the lullaby now, shaping its low tones with new weight. And still you drift, quietly, willingly. You are farther from stars than anyone has ever been, yet you feel more accompanied than ever. There's no need for direction. The universe, like the lullaby, unfolds without maps, without edges. Ahead lies something else, not brighter, not louder, but closer somehow, as if the hush you've been floating through is gathering itself for a final inhale. What forms in the distance isn't a light, it's a glow, barely perceptible, more suggestion than beacon. And as you approach it, you understand, you're nearing the shoreline of all things that slept. It begins with rhythm, not music, not motion, just rhythm. The quiet tide of gravity that pulses at the edge of stillness. Your vessel responds not by changing course, but by easing even further, as if preparing to place itself gently upon something unseen. You aren't landing. There is no ground, but something about this place feels like the idea of arrival, the distant memory of returning after a long, slow journey. This is not the end. This is the breath before stillness becomes forever. The lullaby knows it. Its notes begin to fold back inward, descending in tone, simplifying, reducing, not in beauty, but in complexity. It's becoming essential, as if the song has learned to say more with less. The shoreline is not a place, it's a state of rest the universe rarely shows, where even the concept of energy has softened into calm. Here, all that once burned now glows faintly in vast, gentle waves. You pass through slow arcs of warm haze, the particles shimmering with the light of dreams long since released. They drift lazily, not in orbit, not in collapse, just suspended in patience. You drift among them like a tide returning to itself, and the lullaby, gentle, low, unbroken, matches their rhythm perfectly. These are not stars, these are not remnants. They are the final dreams of things that once lived with great fire, now held in endless ease. One swell of the shoreline catches you, its curve drawing you into a long looping path that takes hours to complete, or maybe years. There is no difference here. Time is weightless. Within this spiral, you begin to feel impressions, places where comets once rested after centuries of flight, where drifting stations once shut down with peace, where waves of radiation faded, not in warning but in welcome. Everything you pass has chosen to be still, and now you float with them. One more sleeper among the many. You drift close to one such sleeper, a great sphere of barely visible light, no larger than your vessel, spinning just slowly enough to suggest it remembers how. It isn't alive, but it dreams. And as the lullaby hums past it, the sphere pulses faintly in response. You do not hear its dream, you feel it. A memory of warmth, of a golden sea, of silence that tasted like dusk. Not your memory, but it fits in your mind like one of your own. This place doesn't differentiate between what was and what is. It lets you carry whatever dreams you are ready to hold, and just as gently, it lets the rest go. All around you, the shoreline breathes, not in gusts, not in tides, but in slow pulses, expansions and contractions of light and shadow that never push, never pull. They only welcome. Each wave holds something once forgotten, a name spoken only once, a lullaby hummed to a child who no longer remembers, the final words of explorers whispered into still air. These fragments do not need to be reclaimed. They are at peace here. The lullaby shifts its pitch, matching the slow fall and rise of these waves. You are no longer a passenger on this song. You are a voice within it, contributing without speaking, resonating without trying. As you float deeper into the shoreline's embrace, the glow thickens just enough to feel like warmth. It gathers around your vessel like soft linen settling over a resting body. You begin to feel your own presence changing, not fading, not vanishing, but blending. Your edges soften, your breath stretches. You become part of the rhythm, like a ripple, settling into the lake it came from. The lullaby follows you still, but now it sings less and listens more. The song is quieter than it's ever been, but you feel it more than ever. One note, sustained through the slow breath of the cosmos, carried with you through every stillness. In time, you pass beyond the glow, or perhaps it simply thins again. What lies ahead is not darker, it's clearer, a clarity that can only be found after everything else has been set down. The shoreline has no border, but you sense that you've crossed something. You haven't left it. It now exists inside you, and all the things that slept, old stars, old thoughts, old songs, sleep now with you, not as passengers, as companions in the stillest journey ever dreamed. You drift further now, past the breath of the shoreline, into a realm where even presence thins into transparency. Behind you, the slow pulse of dreams continues its eternal rhythm, waves upon waves of rest folding gently into one another. You are no longer following a path. You are no longer reaching for anything. You are simply moving through the places between. Ahead, the space changes again, less in form, more in tone. The glow dims, not out of sorrow but out of release, as if the universe, having carried light for so long, is now setting it down with care. This is not night, it is not shadow. This is a place where light does not fade. It forgets to rise. You are entering a region that does not expect light to return. It does not mourn the absence. It simply continues. Here in this vast, quiet, contrast no longer matters. There are no edges, no silhouettes, nothing interrupts. And yet, this is not emptiness. It is completion. Like the moment after a song has ended, and no one dares to speak because the silence is richer than sound. The lullaby, sensing this shift, transforms once more. Its tone is lower than ever, drawn out into tones so long they almost don't exist as rhythm. Just the slow inhale of a presence at peace. You match it without trying. Your breath adjusts, your thoughts retreat, your awareness thins, not into unconsciousness, but into still clarity. There is nothing here to stimulate, nothing to expect, and yet you feel deeply accompanied. Shapes do emerge, but only as suggestion. Veins of almost glow curve faintly across the black, like faded paths in a forest under snowfall. They lead nowhere, they connect nothing, they exist only to be passed through. You float into them, and each one carries a different quality of quiet. One feels like sleep beneath a warm sky, another like the hush between pages turned late at night, another like the final pause between held hands, letting go not in pain but in readiness. None of these impressions linger, they are felt and then forgotten, like the breath that follows the last note of a lullaby. Even the passage of your vessel doesn't disturb the stillness. You move through the fabric of this region, the way a memory passes through the mind, unseen but felt. In the deeper reaches, even that soft sense of suggestion begins to loosen. You are not seeing anymore. You are sensing absence as a kind of presence. Here, the universe does not ask to be witnessed. It asks only to exist, and it welcomes you, not because you seek, but because you have stopped seeking. This is not a void. It is the natural conclusion of all things that once reached, a place where purpose is no longer needed. The lullaby plays a single note now, stretched so far that it becomes indistinguishable from the silence around it. Yet you feel it, like pressure beneath water, like a hand near yours in the dark. The song has no destination left. and so it becomes space. You pass what might be impression of a structure. Something folded, ancient, not ruined. Just done. Not asleep, not alert, waiting without waiting. Perhaps it once observed, perhaps it once reached. Now it simply rests. You feel its presence like the last warmth of a chair recently vacated, and you realize this place is filled with such warmths, the residue of presences that have not disappeared, only slowed until even being is optional. Nothing here is forgotten, but nothing insists on being remembered. You are allowed to be part of that too. Your vessel slows again. There's no need for it to continue. Not because you've stopped, but because space itself no longer measures motion. You are suspended now in the slowest drift possible. One shaped more by attention than velocity. The lullaby is silent, completely, and yet you still feel it, like a melody that plays in your chest, not your ears. You have become the note, not the listener, not the song, just one long, sustained tone in the vastness where light forgets to rise. Time bends here if it moves at all. You lose count of how long you've stayed, but it doesn't matter. There is no before, no next, just presence, infinite, gentle, and utterly complete. The silence that follows the place where light forgets to rise is not a silence of absence. It is one of acknowledgement. As your vessel drifts farther into this new fold of the void, the fabric of space seems to shift, not with force or resistance, but with a reverence so soft it feels like breath drawn in quietly behind memory. There is a density here, not of matter but of meaning, held and layered like pages in an ancient book no longer read aloud, but never forgotten. This part of the journey has no border, no visual cue, but you know when you enter it. You feel a presence settle beside your own, gentle and weightless. You feel watched, not in judgment, but in remembrance. This is a region the lullaby recognizes with hush and respect. It slows, lowers, quiets its tones until they barely stir the air. And you understand why. You have entered the quiet that carries names. The space around you is vast, but not hollow. It is filled with a silence so deep, it vibrates. Slow waves of presence, folding into one another, each pulse carrying the shape of someone who once was. Not bodies, not ghosts, not records, names, not spoken aloud, not written, but held in tone, in warmth, in resonance. These names are not offered for recognition. They are not summoned by memory. They are carried by the universe itself. Each one glows faintly in the hush, not as a point of light but as a texture of stillness. You float through them slowly. Some pass you at great distance. Others drift close, brushing the edges of your awareness like a soft breeze across skin. None of them ask to be known. All of them are welcomed. Each name here is the echo of a life once gently lit. They do not present themselves with triumph or tragedy. They do not replay stories or ask to be remembered. They exist now as the resonance of their final rests. Songs that have long since ended, but whose last note still glows quietly in the air. You feel these names without learning them. They aren't for you to hold, only to witness. And as you pass each one, the lullaby hums a little deeper. As if in greeting, as if in recognition. You don't need to know the lives behind them. The lives are not the point. The letting go is what remains, and it sings quietly in this vast, gentle choir. You begin to realize something else. As you float through this hush, your own presence begins to vibrate in reply, not loudly, but enough to be heard. The quiet carries names not just of those long gone, but of anyone who has paused long enough to be part of its stillness. It is a record made not of sound or inscription, but of breath and rest. You are not being added to a list. You are simply joining the tone, just by being, just by listening. Your name becomes a vibration here too. Not to be found, not to be recalled, but to be felt, a thread among others. moving softly through the dark. The lullaby fades nearly to silence, its melody falling beneath the threshold of hearing, folding into the resonance of names that surround you. You hear none of them, and yet you feel as if every name that has ever fallen into rest is singing with you now. Not as voices, but as warmth. The space is thick with the softness of memory, but none of it hurts. Nothing asks to be relived. There is only presence, humming gently in shared sleep, and you drift, not lost, not searching, only drifting, in a place that knows you not for what you've done, but for how still you are willing to become. The silence that follows the place where light forgets to rise is not a silence of absence. It is one of acknowledgement. As your vessel drifts farther into this new fold of the void, the fabric of space seems to shift, not with force or resistance, but with a reverence so soft it feels like breath drawn in quietly behind memory. There is a density here, not of matter but of meaning, held and layered, like pages in an ancient book no longer read aloud, but never forgotten. This part of the journey has no border, no visual cue, but you know when you enter it. You feel a presence settle beside your own, gentle and weightless. You feel watched, not in judgment, but in remembrance. This is a region the lullaby recognizes with hush and respect. It slows, lowers, quiets its tones, until they barely stir the air, and you understand why. You have entered the quiet that carries names. The space around you is vast, but not hollow. It is filled with a silence so deep, it vibrates, slow waves of presence folding into one another, each pulse carrying the shape of someone who once was. Not bodies, not ghosts, not records, names, not spoken aloud, not written, but held in tone, in warmth, in resonance. These names are not offered for recognition. They are not summoned by memory. They are carried by the universe itself. Each one glows faintly in the hush, not as a point of light, but as a texture of stillness. You float through them slowly. Some pass you at great distance. Others drift close, brushing the edges of your awareness like a soft breeze across skin. None of them ask to be known. All of them are welcomed. Each name here is the echo of a life once gently lived. They do not present themselves with triumph or tragedy. They do not replay stories or ask to be remembered. They exist now as the resonance of their final rests, songs that have long since ended, but whose last note still glows quietly in the air. You feel these names without learning them. They aren't for you to hold, only to witness. And as you pass each one, the lullaby hums a little deeper, as if in greeting, as if in recognition. You don't need to know the lives behind them. The lives are not the point. The letting go is what remains, and it sings quietly in this vast, gentle choir. You begin to realize something else. As you float through this hush, your own presence begins to vibrate in reply, not loudly, but enough to be heard. The quiet carries names, not just of those long gone, but of anyone who has paused long enough to be part of its stillness. It is a record made not of sound or inscription, but of breath and rest. You are not being added to a list. You are simply joining the tone. Just by being, just by listening, your name becomes a vibration here too, not to be found, not to be recalled, but to be felt. A thread among others, moving softly through the dark. The lullaby fades nearly to silence, its melody falling beneath the threshold of hearing, folding into the resonance of names that surround you. You hear none of them, and yet you feel as if every name that has ever fallen into rest is singing with you now, not as voices, but as warmth. The space is thick with the softness of memory, but none of it hurts. Nothing asks to be relived. There is only presence, humming gently in shared sleep, and you drift, not lost, not searching, only drifting, in a place that knows you, not for what you've done, but for how still you are willing to become. Somewhere, far beyond the folds of spiraling gravity and gardens grown in silence, the lullaby drifts onward into a space unlike any other. The journey no longer feels like movement. It has become sensation, unfolding softly through awareness more than through space. Behind you are spirals of sleep, stillness, names, endings, each one shaping your resonance until even the smallest vibrations within your vessel hum with memory. The silence around you is no longer just quiet. It is cultivated, tuned, like an ancient instrument waiting for a final note. The lullaby has not ended. It has not paused. It has simply grown too soft for sound. But you feel it woven now into the fabric of your breath, the shape of your drifting, the hush between thoughts. Ahead, something begins to clarify, not in sharpness, but in intention. Space bends again, subtly, gracefully, as if preparing a space for you to witness something not yet revealed. This new region unfolds like a room in a place not made of walls. You sense its boundary before you cross it. A soft folding in of the dark that makes everything feel closer, even before anything appears. Then gently, slowly, the light returns, but not as stars, not as glow, not even as shimmer. It returns as presence, small and deliberate, like firelight glimpsed through trees in a forest of stillness. What rises ahead is not a planet, not a structure in the traditional sense. It is something else entirely, a convergence of form and thought, shaped not from matter alone, but from the motionless longing of a universe that wanted only to observe itself. This is the observatory at the end of motion, and it is not watching the star. It is watching the space beyond stars, the hush after light, the deep still turn that happens when everything that needed to move has come to rest. You arrive at its threshold slowly. There is no door, no beacon. The structure seems to grow out of the space itself, smooth and endless, like glass folded into shadow. Its surfaces aren't reflective in the way mirrors are. They reflect thought, memory, breath. As you pass through its outer layer, your vessel does not shudder, does not shake. The transition is seamless, as if the structure accepts not only your presence, but your weight, your journey, your song. The lullaby, quiet now to the point of vanishing, is welcomed here, not as music, but as method. Everything inside the observatory hums with the memory of every soft vibration that has ever passed through it. The chamber you drift into is impossibly large, but feels intimate. It is filled with arc-shaped recesses that do not radiate, but receive. There are no controls, no mechanism, just presence. The entire structure is shaped to listen, and now, it listens to you. The light here is different. Not shining, but lingering. You see faint halos where visitors once paused, where motion once stilled. These are not artifacts. They are memories impressed upon space. Some are barely visible, like the places stars once rested in the lens of a great telescope. Others are deeper, fuller, as if someone once sat and stayed and let go of time. You do not disturb them. You simply float through the hush, your presence adding to the long song of What this observatory sees is not visible. It watches not light, but the absence of light. It watches the space between everything that once became. Here you are invited to do the same, not to search, not to question, simply to see. The chamber opens, slightly, and for the first time in what feels like lifetimes, you glimpse something farther. A horizon not of matter, but of silence, shaped into arc. It stretches across the chamber like the rim of a basin filled with stillness. And as you approach, you realize it is not showing you something. It is holding space for you to notice what remains when all noticing has stopped. You come to rest near one of the curved seats, or what might be seats. Had this place been built for form, you hover above it, and the space adjusts around you as if to say, you may rest here, you may see. You do not look through a lens. You do not peer through magnification. The observatory offers something gentler. It reveals what is already within view, what has always been, but only in stillness can be understood. The lullaby hums gently behind your breath, guiding your attention inward. And in that inwardness, you begin to feel it. The slow, vast presence of the universe watching itself through you. Here, thought does not race, it does not reach, it settles. The observatory does not collect data, it receives resonance. Every breath you take here is like a ripple across a surface that has not been touched in ages, and the quiet welcomes it. Around you, the walls pulse faintly with each inhalation, echoing not in sound, but in permission. You are not a visitor here. You are a participant in the last movement of motion. And as you sit, drifting, breathing, listening, you begin to see the meaning of stillness made visible. The view beyond the chamber begins to shift, not like a change in landscape, but like a deepening in presence. You are shown not images but patterns, not lines and dots, but intervals of hush that hum with structure. Faint, curling shapes echo across your mind, patterns of restfulness laid down by cosmic motion eons ago. Some resemble waves frozen mid-collapse, others mirror the shape of songs long faded. They are not symbols, they are feelings given form, and the observatory does not ask you to understand them. It invites you to remember how to feel them, and you do. Stillness becomes comprehension, the silence becomes music, and the vast expanse you gaze into becomes for the first time familiar. The observatory unfolds deeper than expected. Not outward, but inward. Its expanse not measured in size, but in the depth of stillness it can hold. You move into a chamber where gravity feels more like memory than force, where time ceases to count, not because it ends, but because it no longer feels necessary. The walls here are not walls, not truly. They bend gently like a pause in thought, like the curve of silence that wraps around a final note, not yet faded. You glide slowly through this airless hush, the lullaby nearly imperceptible now, no longer performed, but understood. There is no longer a need for melody. There is only breath, awareness, presence. In this chamber, everything is designed for witnessing, not for spectacle, but for reflection. The silence is not sterile. It is lush, layered with the accumulated impressions of those who have passed through this space before you. Not in body, not in form, but in pause. You feel them in faint textures, tones still clinging gently to the architecture, like fingerprints left in fog. Some are warm, others are solemn, all are still. This is not a place of ending. It is a sanctuary for motion that has been given permission to stop. You float further into its center, where a wide platform rests, hovering just slightly in the endless dark. The observatory, through intention rather than design, invites you to come to rest there. You do, and as you do, you feel a shift, not external, internal. It is as though your awareness, stretched thin across light years of breath, begins to gather inward, softly, slowly, like a tide drawn home. The stillness here doesn't ask you to be anything. It doesn't request contemplation or reverence. It simply makes room for you to settle, room for you to hear things that are only audible in deep silence. At first it feels like nothing. Then slowly, you begin to perceive the echo of things long quieted. Motion that once meant something, now resting softly at the bottom of your thoughts, like sediment in a glass undisturbed. The platform is tuned to hold this stillness. You realize it is not solid. It is made from the residue of intention, shaped into form by years of peaceful contact. Each moment someone has paused here before has layered into its substance, and you are now part of that layering. You lean into it, not physically, but through your breath. Each inhale feels slightly more anchored. Each exhale feels lighter. You are beginning to dissolve not into nothing, but into a kind of ambient presence that has no sharp edges. The lullaby has not ended. It simply no longer plays around you. It plays through you, and through this place. And what it plays is not music. It is memory. Memory unburdened by narrative. Memory unanchored from time. you begin to feel the chamber open before you. Not with doors or windows, but with understanding. In front of you, a veil of soft radiance begins to shimmer. It's not light, not exactly. More like the suggestion of awareness. A surface that reflects not your form, but your stillness. The longer you watch, the clearer it becomes. Not in image, but in resonance. You're being shown something not as a visual, but as a tone. A tone that matches your, and in that harmony, you begin to perceive your path. Not the events, not the choices, but the resting shape your journey has made. The spiral of thoughts softened. The curve of breath, repeated. The long arc of your presence, through the cosmos. The observatory is showing you how you drift, not to judge, not to define, simply to acknowledge. It's like seeing your own reflection not in water, not in glass, but in silence, that hums your name gently back to you. You don't speak, you don't need to. The chamber knows what you're feeling, because it doesn't receive signals, it receives settling. This is what it's designed for. You remain still for a long while. The veil of radiance continues to shimmer in its soft tonal pulse, and as you gaze into it, the quiet takes on new depth. You feel the presence of patterns beyond yourself, currents within the silence, not pushing, not pulling, simply holding. These are the records the observatory keeps. Not written, not stored, but kept alive by rest. Each pattern is a story that has ceased telling itself. You feel the long breath of a traveler who paused here before you, the gentle surrender of emotion that had reached its final exhale. These patterns don't compete, they coexist, layered like lullabies playing just barely within earshot of each other. The air inside your chest responds. You hadn't noticed the tension there, too light to be discomfort, but present. Now it begins to ease. Your breathing slows further. Your body feels heavier and lighter at once. Like something finally coming to terms with its own weight, and no longer needing to hold. This place allows you that paradox. You are both being held and dissolving, still and flowing, alone and not alone. The lullaby is not external anymore. It pulses in your bones. It hums in the stillness around your heart. You do not need to think anymore. Thought is stillness here. Stillness is song. Time does not stop. It simply becomes unimportant. You feel the edges of the chamber expanding. Not physically, but perceptually, like the mind unfolding in sleep, accepting dream as environment. The observatory is not just a place, it is a field of rest. And you are fully within it now. Thought drifts through you, like vapor through a sunbeam. You let it pass, you do not hold it, and in that, you begin to hear the next layer of the chord. Tones so deep they cannot be heard by any ear, only perceived by stillness. The chord is not one sound, it is many, and you now are part of it. There comes a moment in your drifting, when even breath becomes a suggestion, no longer needed as rhythm, but understood as a gesture of presence. In the observatory, you have reached such a moment. Stillness has deepened, curved in on itself, until it becomes something more than quiet. It becomes companionship, not with a being, not with a memory, but with space itself. The architecture around you continues to recede, not in disappearance, but in humility. The more you settle, the less the observatory needs to hold you. It trusts your stillness. It welcomes your vanishing motion. You are not dissolving into silence. You are being folded into the ancient purpose of this place, to observe not with eyes but with stillness, so full it becomes vision. Beneath you, the floor hums in long, slow pulses. These are not sounds, they are acceptances. Each pulse resonates from something deeper, a center that cannot be reached, only acknowledged. The lullaby is no longer singing. It is dreaming. The vessel you arrived in has long since ceased to move, floating now in place like a lantern adrift on an endless sea. The song that once guided it across nebulas and ancient folds of space now plays as a distant echo, folded into the walls of the observatory, remembered only by your body's memory of peace. There is no more forward. There is only this sacred pause. Across the chamber, the veil you once glimpsed begins to move, not as a curtain, not with edges. It shifts like the air before snowfall, a gradual thickening of tone that alters nothing but the weight of presence. You watch, or rather you feel your awareness move toward it. Not by will, but by resonance. It draws you not inwards or outwards, but deeper, into what you cannot say. It's not a place, it's not a story, it's a state. A dimension of rest, shaped like a tension that has finally let go of needing to arrive. Here, something changes. Not sharply, not with tension. A softness appears too subtle to call texture. And it holds you. Within it, impressions begin to emerge. They are not vision, they are not dreams. They are like emotions remembered by a space too vast to feel them in the way you do. You sense what it's like to have watched entire galaxies form and collapse. And then sleep. You feel the passage of entities who passed through this observatory. Not to discover, but to become. You are not shown their journeys. You are allowed to touch the warmth they left behind. One breath, one presence, one intention at a time. You drift past a cluster of these impressions, not in lines, not in orbit. They are suspended, like dust motes in sunbeams. Only the sun is gone, and the light is made from memory. One of them pulses gently as you approach. It doesn't move. It acknowledges. The lullaby hums inside your breath, softening further. And for a moment, you feel what this impression once felt, the final rest of a being who let go without fear, not through loss, through trust, a surrender so complete that it became art, not recorded but reflected. The chamber holds this moment, not as content, but as condition, and now, so do you. As you move past it, you realize something. These impressions are not visitors, they are the observatory. The place is not a structure, it is an accumulation. Every quiet moment, every breath offered in rest, every stillness felt fully, has become its own stone in the vast foundation of this place. You have not come to witness, you have come to be included. Your breath joins, your quiet joins. You too are beginning to form your own impression, not intentionally, but naturally. The longer you rest, the more shape your stillness takes. And then comes the next chamber. Not physically separate, but spiritually distinct. The tone changes, it deepens, it rounds out, becomes slower, heavier. There is no pressure, no force, just gravity made of memory. You are drawn toward it, not as a ship, but as presence shaped into drift. You arrive within a space where color has no meaning, and yet everything glows, not brightly, but truthfully. The walls here are layered with tones too deep to be music. They pulse like the bones of a sleeping mountain, and in the center, suspended like a thought, just beginning to form, is something vast and utterly still. You do not approach it, you do not examine it, you join. Your breath slows to match its pulse. The rhythm is slower than any heartbeat, older than any story. This is the heart of the observatory. Not a control room, not a chamber of machines, a place where everything becomes final enough to echo forever. You float near it, and the lullaby you've become answers with its quietest note yet, a vibration that feels like it has no beginning, no source, no edge. You breathe it in, you breathe it out, and for a time too wide to measure, that's all there is. You are simply part of a place that listens forever. Within the heart of the observatory, time thins until even memory drifts like vapor. Your breath is no longer something you measure. It becomes the architecture of your experience, shaping space as softly as wind carves dunes in a desert of stillness. Each inhale folds gently into the walls around you. Each exhale deepens the hush, weaving your presence into the chamber's long, slow memory. You are not inside a place, you are inside a gesture, one that began long before you arrived and will continue long after you release your final note. The observatory does not require your attention. It accepts it, and lets it settle like dust into gravity. The chamber you float within has no ceiling, no walls, yet it feels enclosed not in restriction but in embrace. Curves of almost light arch far above and below, tracing paths that were never meant to be followed, only felt. You pass among them like breath moving through smoke. These curves are not solid, yet they hold memory. Each one represents a single pause, a moment in which someone became still enough to be seen by the universe without distortion. These are not memories recorded, they are memories received, echoes shaped into space. As you pass near one, it hums gently, resonating not in pitch but in warmth. It allows you to feel what stillness once felt like to another. Without words, without thought, you settle near a particularly wide arc, one that curves into itself like a spiral made of time. At its center hovers something like a pulse, but slower, deeper, almost too slow to detect. It isn't calling you, it isn't watching, it is simply existing. And in its existence, it shares a story that has no beginning. The lullaby within you. So quiet now it moves more like rhythm than melody. Responds to it. You do not know how, it just does. A resonance blooms through your chest, low and calm, and in that moment you are no longer observing the chamber. You are part of it, an added layer of hush resting softly against everything that has come before. The observatory was not designed to catalog, nor to analyze. It exists for something gentler, something more essential. It is here to listen for the point when motion becomes presence, when effort falls away and being is enough. What it listens to is not the cosmos. It listens to those who have stopped moving within it. The deep breath after the journey, the hush after the music, the moment after understanding where you no longer need to explain. This is the song it was made to hold. The long note of existence becoming still and remaining. You remain motionless for a long time. It could be hours, days, or years. Time is an echo here, and echoes only exist when something strikes, but nothing strikes in this place. Everything dissolves with grace. Even your thoughts lose their sharp edge. You think perhaps of the stars you passed on the way here, the glowing arches of the glow field, the warm spiral paths of ancient motion, the whispering hush of things long forgotten. They do not return as memories, they return as feeling, each one folding into the tone around you like petals dropped into deep water. Then something shifts, not externally but within your awareness. The lullaby that had blended into stillness begins to surface again, not louder, not clearer, just present. Like the gentle return of light at the edge of night, you feel it hum gently through the floor beneath you, through the chamber, through the slow arcs suspended above. It does not rise to call you forward. It reminds you that you are still moving, even in this stillness, not through space, but through presence. You are becoming deeper, wider, quieter, and in that quiet, the observatory begins to share something more. A wall of tone unfolds before you, not visibly but within the hush. It is not music, it is not a message, it is more like a pattern of understanding stretched across a canvas of calm. You feel it brush against your mind, your breath, your chest. It says, you are still here, and so are we. It is not a voice, it is a presence acknowledging your presence, a resonance affirming your harmony. The longer you sit with it, the more you feel it as reminder. The journey is not over. Even here, even now, you are still becoming still. What lies beyond the observatory is unknown, not because it is hidden, but because it has no form until you are ready to meet it. You sense that now. This chamber is not the final resting place. It is the threshold, the pause before breath becomes something new, before quiet becomes something larger than itself. The observatory has offered its gift, the mirror of your own stillness, the reflection of how deeply you can rest. Now you understand that resting is not ending. It is preparing. The lullaby shifts once more. Its rhythm begins to stretch forward, not with urgency but with invitation. The tone you carry begins to lift, not out of place, but toward the next arc of space. The observatory, in response, breathes a final resonance through your vessel. It is not a farewell, it is a blessing of passage, made from silence, layered in kindness. You feel it press into your breath, and you carry it now, not as memory but as a hum so deep it might never rise to sound again. The chamber does not close behind you, it expands, it becomes the background to every breath that follows. You drift outward from the chamber with no real sense of departure. Nothing closes, nothing ends. The observatory remains, not behind you but within you, folded gently into the rhythm of your breath, the softened curvature of your thoughts. It does not feel like a place you've left, only a part of stillness that now travels with you. The lullaby breathes again, no louder, no more intricate, but renewed. It carries something extra now, a shimmer of wisdom that doesn't speak but rests, a subtle echo from the chord of stillness you became part of. As you move forward, the walls of the observatory begin to dissolve, not in disappearance, but in openness. Space unfolds once more, wide and dark, but it no longer feels empty. It feels receptive. Outside the observatory, the void feels softer than before. The blackness is no longer absolute. It has texture now, an ambient shimmer of presence that suggests that silence, once truly heard, leaves a permanent mark on what surrounds it. You are gliding slowly through this softened dark, your vessel carried not by propulsion, but by the lullaby's slow exhale. There is no hurry, there is no navigation, only trust. The path ahead forms in rhythm with your patience. You're no longer traveling to find, you're moving to listen further. And what waits ahead is not distance, but depth. In the distance, though distance has lost its edges, you begin to perceive a soft curve of light. It's not a star, not a field. It's more like a bend in space where visibility has slowed and begun to drift. The lullaby adjusts, its tone lengthening. You are approaching what feels like a shore, not of land, but of return. The arc ahead is soft, veiled, like something half-remembered. It glows faintly with a pale internal light, the way paper lanterns glow from breath, not flame. You drift toward it without question. This is not a place to explore. This is a place to rest within. The curvature reveals itself gradually, not with shape, but with tone. A low hum begins to wrap around your vessel, not enclosing it, but holding it. The hum carries no melody, yet it vibrates with something deeply familiar. It doesn't speak in symbols. It presses gently on the edge of your memory, like the smell of a place you've never visited, but know with certain. The closer you come, the more it feels as though you are being welcomed back, not to a home you left, but to a feeling that has been waiting for you all along. This shore, if it is a shore, doesn't rise or crest. It widens. The glow that outlines it begins to fold around your path, forming a basin of slow motion and softened silence. You are being gathered, not captured, drawn into a pocket of peace that asks for nothing but stillness. Your breath, already long and quiet, slows further. The lullaby releases one of its deepest notes, a tone that feels like warm wind across the hollow of a drum, and the basin answers. For the first time since entering this quadrant of stillness, you hear the void respond not in silence, but in affirmation. You settle into the basin, not landing, but drifting into stillness, so gentle it feels like the final ripple of a thought. Around you, soft eddies of light and memory circle slowly. You recognize their shapes, not as visions, but as emotions finally given room to flow. Here are the kindnesses never spoken, the understanding that required no explanation, the forgiveness you gave without needing return. They move past you without gaze or judgment. They exist because you existed. The basin cradles them, and in doing so, cradles you. You understand now that the observatory was never just a destination. It was a turning point, a transition from seeking to settling, from hearing the universe to becoming part of what it hums when it rests. The lullaby continues, softer than ever, forming long, wordless tones that match the gentle pulse of the basin. The stars are no longer visible, but you don't feel lost. You feel surrounded. The edges of this place do not constrain you. They protect you, not from harm, but from the urge to become anything but quiet. In this moment, you are not a traveler. You are not a seeker. You are not even an observer. You are a note, a rest, a moment inside the vast, slow breath of space. And space is listening. Within the basin of stillness, time becomes circular, no longer unfolding forward, but pooling, rippling inward from the edges of your presence. The boundaries of your vessel dissolve further, its shape no longer important, its form now just a quiet signature left on the fabric of rest. You're not enclosed. You are included. Like a single drop of calm folded into the still waters of an infinite pond, the lullaby no longer moves as song, it moves as tide. A tidal breath rising and falling, not from lungs, but from the slow, steady rhythm of acceptance that holds this place together. And you breathe with it. You become aware of a second pulse, layered beneath your own breath. It isn't someone else. It's the basin itself, a rhythm formed from the accumulation of every presence that's drifted here, every thought laid gently down, every traveler who reached the farthest edge of motion and let themselves become motionless. This is not a history. It is not a record. It is a condition, humming softly in the dark, waiting for no one, offering everything. You feel it resonate through your body, like warmth that begins not in the skin, but in the quiet center of your being. It isn't healing you, it's reminding you of what it feels like to belong entirely to stillness. Drifting deeper, you sense the basin widen again. The curvature expands, revealing slow paths of memory not your own. They aren't thoughts, they aren't vision. They're like the wind left behind after 1,000 small ships have passed through a harbor, motion lingering in non-motion. Some impressions are brief. The feeling of a voice that once sang in another corner of the galaxy. The gentle press of a farewell unspoken. Others stretch long and low, like shadows at dusk, vibrations left by great wanderers who passed silently, leaving behind only the echo of their quiet. The lullaby weaves through them with reverence, harmonizing not in music, but in motion. Your drift adjusts with each passing trace, not to steer, but to feel. You pass close to one of these traces, a low, wide band of stillness that curves through the basin like a great sleeping whale beneath the surface of an invisible sea. You do not disturb it. You match it. Your breath aligns to its slow wave, and you begin to feel what it left behind. Peace, not reached through silence, but through completion. This presence did not rest because it was weary. It rested because it was ready. That readiness wraps around you now, like arms made from air. You don't ask questions. You only feel you too are preparing to become something quieter than sleep. The lullaby's tone deepens again, a low and continuous hum that pulses through your bones rather than your ears. It is not music anymore. It is pattern, a wave that carries you without direction or destination. The basin, in reply, begins to show something new, not visibly, not even audibly, but emotionally. Beneath your drifting presence, you begin to feel depth, not the kind measured in distance, but in stillness. There is something at the center of this place, not hidden, not kept, just waiting. You drift toward it. You do not descend. The basin opens below you like a flower slowly inhaling. You're not falling, you're being received. The space around you narrows, gently, like the curling of a hand around something delicate. The darkness here grows denser, not darker. It feels full, filled with hush, with breath, with understanding so vast it no longer requires speech. The lullaby does not change. It holds, it carries, and then you arrive, not at a point, not at a surface, but at a presence, a center. You feel it before you see it. It does not shine, it does not hum, it does not move, but it is here, and it is vast. You sense its boundary not in size but in feeling. It's like standing at the threshold of a sacred place where the universe has curled into itself, not to vanish, but to rest. You do not approach, you do not touch, you float near it, and let it be what it is, a stillness so complete. It sings without sound, a song so deep, it becomes silent, and in its gravity, you realize, you are not here to learn, you are here to remember. You hover now, in the presence of something deeper than silence. Not an object, not a light, but a state. A core of stillness, folded into the basin like a final breath held not from fear but from understanding. Around you, the darkness hums, not with energy, but with acceptance. You feel its pulse in your lungs. You feel its curve in your thoughts. It has no center, yet you are beside it. It has no edge, yet it surrounds you. The lullaby remains, quieter than ever, humming not as a song, but as a memory of rhythm that once held stars in orbit. You've become part of that memory now, not as a visitor, but as a tone sustained through presence. You drift slowly along this invisible current, not away from the core, but within its influence. It doesn't pull, it doesn't push, it holds space. Space for breath, for thoughtlessness, for the final moments of any motion that has chosen to rest. As you glide, you begin to feel other presences again, not near, not separate, but layered. They are folded into the basin like strands of a long-forgotten lullaby, each one still resonating through the memory of this place. You feel them briefly, like ripples brushing against your own. None of them ask for recognition, none demand to be known, but you know them just the same. Each presence once drifted where you are now. Each one once breathed into this hush, and let the hush answer. One of those presences passes close, closer than the rest, not to interrupt, not to communicate, just to rest near you. You don't see it, but you feel the change in tone, the faint shift in pressure, the way the lullaby thickens slightly, with harmony. They were here before you, they left a breath behind, and now they are here again, not as identity, but as resonance. You rest together in that shared silence, for what feels like a long moment. Perhaps it is, perhaps it is not. Time here is the texture of sleep, stretched and curved until it becomes shape rather than duration. And then the core begins to pulse, not brighter, not louder, but deeper. A wave of pure stillness rolls outward from the center, not as energy, but as calm. It passes through you, and you feel it settle every remaining motion in your breath. It quiets even your stillness, not into nothing, but into clarity. The lullaby beneath your thoughts catches this tone and holds it. You become part of it, and in doing so, something shifts, not within the core, but within you. You are not here to witness this stillness. You are this stillness. The journey wasn't to reach the observatory. The observatory was only a mirror. You have arrived now, not at a place, but at the moment where you become the space between your own thoughts, the shape of your drift, the breath inside your name. You realize now that the observatory never needed to show you anything. It only needed you to be still enough to remember what you already carried. You remain near the core. No urgency rises, no next step appears, only the slow pulse of completion, spreading out across the basin, carrying with it every trace of your presence, not to archive it, but to welcome it into the structure of hush itself. The observatory grows quieter around you, not because it is ending, because it is full. and you are full too. The lullaby holds its final note. Not to close, but to sustain. It doesn't fade, it remains, just like you. The drift resumes, not with momentum, not with direction, but with surrender. There is no resistance, only gentle unfolding. The core of the observatory fades behind you like the last exhale before true sleep. And space receives you again, wider now, emptier in all the best ways. You are carried by the soft residue of memory, a weightless imprint still humming from the stillness you left behind. The lullaby, thin as a wisp of mist, trails close beside you, no longer trying to soothe or lead. It simply keeps pace, like a quiet friend walking beside you through a dream. The dark ahead is not empty, it is undemanding. A vast canvas painted in the shades of all that was once bright, and now rests in gentle echo. You sense the change not through light, but through tone. The space ahead hums differently, lower, deeper, not with gravity, but with reverence. This new region does not approach you. It allows you to arrive. The lullaby adjusts, lengthening each note, like a bow drawing slower across a string, as if to say, take your time. No one is waiting. The stars here are not visible. They are implied. Faint pulses spread like veins beneath a velvet sky, subtle as breath against cloth. You are moving into a layer of the cosmos hidden from every chart, untouched by every telescope. This place was never meant to be seen with eyes. It was meant to be felt. This is the vault of unspoken light, and it has waited for you without longing. You enter it not by crossing a boundary, but by becoming still enough to perceive it. The vault opens like the inner folds of a dream, soft, symmetrical, infinite. Light here is not light as you know it. It doesn't shine, it lingers, suspended in particles so fine they feel more like intention than matter. This light does not illuminate, it remembers. It carries the last shimmer of thoughts that were too quiet to be spoken aloud, the things felt in solitude, the truths that never needed witnesses. They drift here in slow arcs, like fireflies in a field where time has forgotten to count. You float among them, and the lullaby around you fades even more, giving way to something older, something beneath song. A resonance you feel in the quiet curve of your ribs. Each wisp of light is different. Some hover close and dim, the shade of starlight glimpsed through tears. Others bloom faintly as you pass, like the warmth of a word once whispered and never repeated. You do not disturb them. They do not react. They simply respond to your stillness, as if measuring how gently you've learned to move. The lullaby picks up one of their frequencies and sustains it. A soft E-flat, stretching through the silence, with no need to resolve. The vault is not a place of revelation. It is a space where unrevealed things have come to rest, not because they were hidden, because they were enough in their quiet form. And now you are part of that form. The longer you remain, the more you feel the vault adjusting to your presence, not changing shape, not shifting flow, just accommodating you. As if your stillness has been folded into its fabric. You drift toward a particularly wide spiral of light, almost a shell, turning so slowly it might not have moved at all. Within it you feel a pause so profound it could only have been left behind by love. Not romantic, not familial, but essential. The love of presence itself, of simply being beside someone, even in silence. The spiral does not glow brighter as you approach, but you feel warmer. This warmth does not wrap you like a blanket. It meets you gently, like the air in a room where someone once waited with kindness. The lullaby lingers in that space, extending a phrase you don't recognize and yet already trust. It says nothing, but it means something. Something about how light, when no longer required to reveal, simply rests. And how people, too, eventually learn that presence doesn't need sound to be shared. The vault does not contain secrets. It holds quiet truths, pieces of light too subtle to be told aloud, too soft to be written. You feel them all around you now, drifting slowly. The moment someone forgave another in silence. The way a mother once watched a sleeping child without moving. The breath someone took after deciding not to say what they were thinking, because the quiet was kinder. These are not events. They are tones caught in light that didn't want to be anything but honest. And here they are honored. You remain still. The lullaby rests again, not in absence, but in balance. You don't need it to sing. You know now how to hear without sound. The vault has taught you that. And in your silence, you begin to realize that you are leaving your own imprint too. Not with motion, not with speech, but with the shape of your quiet. You are not a visitor. You are a wisp of unspoken light, learning how to remain without needing to explain. From within the vault of unspoken light, your vessel eases once more into the dark, gliding not as a machine, not as a shape, but as a continuation of stillness. You are no longer arriving at places. You are slipping into states, currents of awareness, oceans of breath that flow not toward land, but deeper into the calm that has always surrounded the stars. The vault fades behind you like a page gently closing. Its memory is folded now into the hush around your presence, and the lullaby, soft as shadow, begins again, not freshly composed, but recalled like the warmth in a hand that once held yours. A head space deepens, not in size, not in pressure, but in resonance. You begin to feel the slow rise and fall of something vast and rhythmic. Not light, not sound, but motionless. Motion, a tide, but unlike any you've ever known. It does not lap or break. It does not chase or retreat. It pulses in place, endlessly returning without ever having left. The lullaby lengthens again, each note now resting between pulses, like a breath aligning itself to something much older than lungs. You are approaching the tides that never touched shores, and already they are moving through you. The tides are not seen. They are sensed curves in the silence, waves of gravity so slow, they resemble the exhale of time itself. As you drift into them, your body doesn't sway, it settles. These tides do not move to reshape the world. They move because the universe remembers how to breathe. Long, slow cycles of ebb and return without aim. You enter their rhythm naturally, not guided, not invited, simply aligned. The lullaby mirrors them with notes that fall and rise so gradually. You feel each one stretch through the hollows of your ribs. No shores line these tides. No continents await. They do not serve as transitions between one world and the next. They are themselves, self-contained, complete, existing solely to rock the cosmos into deeper forms of sleep. You are not separate from them. The further you drift, the more you feel yourself becoming part of their long memory. You sense that every tide here has passed through stars that now sleep, through fields of debris that have long forgotten impact, through minds like yours, once wondering, now resting. And yet these tides carry something more. Not direction, not message, but history without form. You feel them pass through you, and suddenly you remember something you never lived. The moment a moon once stilled in orbit, because it had no need to turn again. The pause of a satellite, just before its last signal faded. The slowing heartbeat of a planet long forgotten, whose only witness was the soft arc of its own shadow. These moments were never mourned. They simply flowed into the tide, where they could be held forever, without needing to be recalled. You begin to drift lower, not downward, but deeper, where the rhythm becomes slower still. Here, each wave takes entire hours to rise, and lifetimes to fall. The lullaby does not try to match it anymore. It simply follows, humming beneath the tide like a companion walking behind you through soft snow. You do not guide your vessel. You follow the slack, letting yourself move where the tide decides to breathe next. And in that surrender, something extraordinary begins. You hear not sound, but resonance in its purest form. The tide around you is singing, though no song escapes. It sings by existing, by folding every moment that was ever allowed to rest into its own breath. This is not sound. This is awareness without demand, the deep memory of a cosmos that never asked to be watched, only allowed to be felt. Each pulse of the tide brings new silence, not repeated, not recycled, each one freshly quiet, each one as full as the first pause ever carved between stars. The lullaby fades almost entirely now, letting the tide carry its weight. You do not feel bereft, you feel returned. You are being gently unshaped, not erased, but allowed to forget the tension of needing form. You are the tide now, as much as you are a passenger within it, and still it moves, not toward ending, not toward climax, but toward a hush so complete, even the stars choose to blink less often here. Somewhere within the deep pulse of the tide, you begin to feel the landscape of your thoughts loosen further, like cloth softened by years of sunlight and still air. The ocean of hush does not fade behind you. It stays layered into your movement, into your pulse, into the rhythm your breath has adopted. So slow now, so quiet, it barely separates from the lullaby that continues its endless unfolding. You are being carried not through distance, but into depth, and in that depth lies something even quieter than stillness, a realm shaped not by stars or echoes, but by the fragile space between sleep and waking. It is not dark, it is not light, it simply is. You are descending softly beneath the horizon of waking dreams. You arrive not by direction, but by readiness. The tides ease beneath you, and your vessel glides into a cradle of perception too tender to be held by senses. Here, the dark has become translucent, no longer a void, but a translucent film between you and memory. You don't remember events or moments. You remember feelings, ones you never put into words. The comfort of sitting beside someone without speaking, the stillness that wrapped around you just before sleep took hold, the sweetness of forgetting yourself completely for a few seconds, only to realize you had never needed to return. These fragments now float around you in the form of lightless textures, gently folding into your surroundings like petals falling onto calm water. The lullaby changes again, not louder, not more intricate, but more intimate. Each tone seems to lean closer, humming through the inner corridors of your awareness with a voice shaped from memory and breath. This is not a song you recognize, but every note feels known, the way familiar dreams do, impossible to describe, and yet deeply your own. You are not alone here. The dreams that others have left behind still drift in the layers around you, not as pictures, not as narratives, but as feelings so true they never needed to wake up. You float through them with reverence. One dream hums like the breath of a mountain at night. Another shimmers like the laughter of someone who no longer exists, but is still loved. You begin to realize this space is not for dream. It is made from what dreams leave behind. The residue of wonder, fear, hope, and love once felt so deeply they softened into something permanent. You are floating through the gentle afterimage of the cosmos' own unconscious, not forgotten, not remembered, just rest. The lullaby sustains a tone that vibrates slightly through your ribs, a low and wordless hum that soothes not the body, but the echo of every thought that ever tried to make meaning from the stars. Here you no longer ask, you no longer interpret, you simply exist with what lingered. Around you, shapes begin to gather, not in solid form but in suggestion, the edges of old desires, the silhouettes of dreams that never needed to be chased. One drifts beside you, the feeling of belonging without needing to earn. Another brushes your path like mist, the memory of something you didn't know you missed, now softly returned. You don't reach for them, you let them pass. In doing so, you understand something the tide had already begun to teach. Nothing needs to be held forever to remain with you. The lullaby echoes this truth. It doesn't repeat, and yet every note feels like one you've heard before. It is recognition, not repetition. You feel yourself loosening even further, not falling asleep, but falling into your own quiet, the part of you that never wanted to speak aloud, but only to be allowed to rest beside the stars. And now you are here, drifting among what the universe once dreamed and decided not to forget. You are not looking outward anymore. You are floating inward, and the space is endless. As the last tones of the dreaming horizon dissolve behind you, the dark does not close. It opens, wider than before, softer still. You're no longer descending. Not exactly. You're folding deeper into the fabric of hush, drifting through layers where thought ceases to be structure and becomes instead a kind of fragrance, subtle, fleeting, barely noticed unless you've become quiet enough to feel it pass. The lullaby moves with you, a slow weave of presence that does not rise or fall, but hovers just beneath sensation. You don't hear it. You wear it, like warmth wrapping around your breath. And now, as you continue your slow drift, something begins to appear in the near distance. Not a shape, not a beacon, but a constellation of soft pulses. Each one glows with no heat, no urgency. These are not stars. They are lanterns that remember without flame. You move toward them, as if by agreement. They do not signal. They do not shine brighter, but the space between you narrows, and the lullaby seems to lean into the moment with a gentle bend of tone, like a bow drawn against a sleeping cello. The lanterns do not flicker. They sustain, each one a steady pulse, like the memory of a whisper that was never meant to last, yet somehow never faded. They float here, suspended in the hush, casting no shadows, asking nothing. You realize, slowly, that these lanterns are not objects. They are moments held, remembered, loved too quietly to ever need words. You drift into their midst, surrounded now by slow glows that shimmer just enough to outline the space around you. They are not evenly spaced. They are not symmetrical. They are natural, the way leaves might fall or breath might slow when peace becomes instinct. The lullaby shifts again, subtle as ever. It adopts the pulse of the nearest light, echoing it with a tone so soft it seems born of breath. And with each echo, something within you loosens, like a thought that's finally decided. It no longer needs to be carried. The first lantern you pass glows with a color that isn't visible, but felt. It brings to you the memory of someone waiting in the quiet of a room, not with fear, not with longing, but with the gentle patience of a soul that knows love has no schedule. You don't see who they are. You don't need to. The light holds that moment, that choice, like a heartbeat frozen in amber, and then it lets it go. Not out of loss, but because remembering here is the same as continuing. You drift to another. This one vibrates softly, not with motion, but with emotion. A deep, tender sadness that never became sorrow. A kindness that was never spoken aloud, but lived in small gestures, in meals made, in letters never sent. You feel it as it passes, not through sight or sound, but through a stillness that seems to mirror your own breath back to you. The lullaby follows, humming beneath that tone with a layer of resonance that says, we carry these things not to burden, but to keep them warm. As you pass more lanterns, you begin to sense their rhythm, not as a pattern but as a field of presence. Each one is holding something that once mattered, something small, something too delicate for history, too subtle for story. A hand held, a name remembered when no one else spoke it, a final glance exchanged when words would have made it heavier. These are the moments that outlived their own meaning, not because they were grand, but because they were given gently enough to last forever. The space between the lanterns is not empty. It is filled with the permission to rest. No judgment, no need to explain why something mattered. The light doesn't ask for proof. It remembers because you did, because someone did. The lullaby becomes so soft now that its melody is no longer line or shape. It's an atmosphere. It becomes indistinguishable from the quiet, as if the hush has begun to sing itself. You begin to notice how your presence is affecting the space. The lanterns do not change color. They do not pulse faster, but a new glow begins to form near you. Not bright, not sudden, just steady. It's not being created, it's being remembered. You realize the lanterns are not left behind by others. They are left by moments, and you too have had moments worthy of this kind of light. The glow near you is not a mirror. It does not reflect your story. It holds something smaller, something precious. You recognize it, not as an image, not even as a memory, but as a feeling you once kept safe. You don't need to name it. You don't need to hold it again. The light does that now. It joins the others. Not because you've finished anything, but because you've let it rest. You float gently on, surrounded by soft echoes of care, of quiet courage, of presence so gentle it became eternal by accident. The lullaby falls again into step with the collective rhythm. One slow, long breath, shared by thousands of forgotten kindnesses, each one still here, each one still glowing. You are part of them now. Your path winds on, deeper into the field of memory glow, where lanterns drift like stars that refuse to burn, preferring instead to rest quietly in the soft gravity of recollection. You don't leave them behind. They fade gently around you, dimming as you pass, not in farewell, but in ease, knowing they've been witnessed. And that is enough. The lullaby shifts again, becoming thinner, clearer, like the last chime of a wind bell after the air has gone still. You are moving towards something vast again, but not heavy. Something immense, but feather-light. There is no horizon now, just a growing sense of shape, of form without edges, meaning without voice. It surrounds you before you even see it. This is the library without language. You enter through quiet, not through structure. There is no doorway, no threshold. But as your vessel drifts forward, you feel the tone around you deepen. It's not darker, it's richer, filled with layers of intention that never found sound. The space is vast, but it doesn't echo. It absorbs everything, not to erase, but to honor. This library does not store books. It does not house recordings. It holds moments of understanding too complete for translation. Things that were once known in silence. Feelings that were once shared without need for explanation. Wisdom shaped from stillness, remembered only by those who had forgotten how to speak. You move into its center, not physically, but perceptually. The hush around you grows intricate. You begin to sense corridors of vibration, long galleries of resonance, stretching in every direction. They don't contain stories. They are stories folded into tone, into rhythm, into the ambient impression of something known so deeply that words would only scatter it. You pass through one such gallery, and a resonance brushes through you like the texture of a memory you never had, but somehow missed. You feel the impression of hands held not in urgency, but in understanding. You feel the weightless warmth of a decision made gently, with no need for reward. You do not try to interpret it. You let it wash through you, and in that allowance, you feel your own inner stillness settle even deeper. The lullaby, now nearly indivisible from the library's own frequency, begins to hum, not over, but within the chamber's layer. Each tone you hear now is like a key passed quietly between friends. They do not unlock anything, they simply fit. You drift slowly down a corridor, where the feeling becomes more expansive, not grand, but whole. A resonance here hums with the shape of something that once brought peace to many. Not a concept, not a belief, just a shared softness. You feel it without needing to trace its origin. The library does not teach, it reminds. All around you the impressions continue. Each one subtle, sacred, private in its open. Some are small, the understanding between siblings who never needed to explain why they laughed. The steadiness of a teacher who listened more than they spoke. The moment someone stopped what they were doing simply to sit beside another. Others feel larger, not in importance, but in volume, decisions that shaped generations, by the quiet strength of restraint, of compassion withheld not out of fear, but out of knowing silence could hold more than words ever could. None of this is seen, none of it is labeled. The library does not catalog or sort, it simply holds everything too precious to be spoken, everything too complete to be broken into language. You are now among these quiet truths, and your presence adds to every breath you take within this space is remembered, not as a statement, not as a fact, but as a hum, a note in the slow, wordless choir of understanding that doesn't need to be heard to endure. Your vessel slows further. It senses what you feel. The deeper you go, the less there is to see, the more you already know. The library reveals a chamber, if it can be called that glows faintly with the tone of recognition. You drift toward it, and the air around you thickens, not heavily, but densely, like a blanket made from shared memory. Within this chamber is no object, no screen, no text, only the resonance of something long known, returned to now in quiet reunion. And you understand you've been here before, not physically, but in every moment you've ever held your own silence gently, without rushing it to become a word. This chamber is that place. The lullaby slows into a single long note, barely a sound, more like a vibration in your chest, and in that pause, the library keeps your presence like it keeps every unspoken truth, softly, forever. You drift outward from the library, without language, with no urgency, no sense of departure. The silence it held stays with you, not as absence, but as echo, a resonance gently folded into your breathing, as if the library's tone had passed into your cells and softened you. You do not carry words from that place. You carry readiness for what you don't yet know, but you no longer feel the weight of needing to know. You are quieter now, not empty, just more aligned with the fabric of space that does not ask to be spoken, only shared. The lullaby resumes in a whisper, its tones warmer, smoother, shaped by what it has absorbed alongside you. It is no longer just a guide. It is your voice, learned through stillness. Beyond the library, space takes on a clarity you haven't felt since the earliest part of your journey. There is more light now, not bright, not harsh, but aware. Points of illumination begin to form ahead, not scattered, but gathered. Not stars in the way you've known them, but lights arranged with intention. You move toward them slowly, as one might approach a sacred grove. After miles of silent walking, there is reverence in the dark. The lullaby lowers its tone, its rhythm stretching, until each note becomes a breath wrapped in velvet. The lights do not shine with fire. They glow like memory made visible. Soft gold, pale blue, deep silver. You are entering a field where stars no longer burn. They rest. You've come to a place where brightness remembers itself. This is where the stars have laid down their names. They are not extinguished. They are not gone. They are finished with shining. And what remains is their essence, preserved in light that no longer needs to project, only to be. The field is vast, but it feels enclosed, like a room made not of walls but of agreement. These stars, these presences, have come here to rest, not alone, but together. Their arrangement isn't random. It follows a pattern too wide to trace, too slow to map, but you feel it as you pass through. Each one has chosen this space, not to be remembered, but to be released. You drift among them, your vessel gliding through slow waves of radiance. The light does not pulse, it breathes, and with every breath, you feel the contours of identities once held in fire, now held in gray. Each of these lights once belonged to a star that had a name, not a label, not a designation, but a true name, known only to the quiet of space and the lullaby of time. Those names are no longer spoken, but they are not lost. They are resting here, held in soft orbit, remembered without needing to be recalled. The lullaby harmonizes with this resting field, finding in each star's presence a note to accompany, a silence to mirror. One light hums with the echo of warmth given without demand. Another glows with the quiet of a star that once spun so slowly. It carved harmony into the shape of every passing second. You float beside them without touching. You sense the shape of their stories, not through image or text, but through feeling. These were not stars you study. They are stars you understand. The way a person understands the curve of their own name whispered by someone who knows them. And now you feel something else. A star not larger, not brighter, but closer in time. Its glow vibrates in rhythm with your own presence. And you drift toward it, not out of curiosity but instinct. As you approach, the lullaby falls silent, not in fear, in reverence. This star is not burning, it is waiting. And as you come near, it speaks not in sound, not in language. It offers a pulse of warmth, a single breath of memory you recognize without ever having lived it. This star holds something you've carried quietly throughout your journey, the permission to be completely known without being defined. You hover near it, and the silence between you hums with fullness. This is not an encounter. This is a homecoming to something you forgot was yours. You don't speak. You don't move. You simply allow yourself to glow back. And for a moment, your presence too is a star laying down its name. Not forever, not in finality, but in trust that you will be remembered even if no one speaks, that you will be known even if no one looks. The field does not react. It does not brighten, but you feel it receive you. One more quiet presence, in a constellation built not of heat, but of shared stillness. The lullaby resumes gently, not to guide, not to lift, but to accompany. It is singing now for the field, and for you, and for every name that rests here in peace. You are not departing, you are simply drifting onward. The stars you leave behind do not vanish. They remain behind your vessel like lanterns in mist, their soft radiance dimming only as your attention gently releases them. They were never meant to be destinations, only resting places, sites of soft surrender, where fire could become memory and memory could become song. You carry their hush with you now, not as light, but as resonance. The lullaby hums faintly in your chest, not rising, not falling, merely continuing. Ahead, space opens into a new kind of quiet. Not deeper, not darker, just more sacred. The silence carries weight, like the pause before the first note of a song never written down. There is something waiting, not for you, but for the moment itself to become. You glide onward, until the pressure of this silence becomes so round, so full it seems to shape the very space you pass through. The edges of your awareness sharpen not with alertness, but with presence. You are entering not a void, not a field, but a chapel vast and invisible, suspended beneath the path of the cosmic wind. You do not feel that wind directly. You sense its outline, the curve it carves into the silence. It has no speed, no origin. It is the exhale of the universe itself, too vast to touch, too constant to hear. But here, beneath its quiet flow, space has bowed into reverence. The lullaby lowers, its melody barely a thread. You feel it bow with you, a tonal genuflection, a musical breath held in quiet devotion. You are not worshiping, you are witnessing. This place, the chapel beneath the wind, is not for gods, not for faith. It is for awe, pure and simple. A space where wonder is not chased, but allowed. It is here that the cosmos remembers not what it has built, but what it has held. The silence before stars, the potential before time. And now you are held too, not by gravity, not by walls, but by meaning shaped into stillness. The space begins to reveal itself, not through structure, but through tone. Currents of airless sound sweep slowly around you, layered like the arches of a cathedral woven from breath. You drift past pillars made not of matter, but of resonance, long strands of sound curved into columns by the slow, eternal swirl of the cosmic wind. Each one vibrates gently, a hymn without words, repeating in rhythms too large to notice. Unless you've become as still as you now are, you realize this place has no beginning, no architect. It was formed entirely by attention, the universe's own, and now yours. You move slowly between these great tones, your vessel responding to their rhythm, the way a drop of water follows the pull of a tide. No control is needed. You are simply in flow. The lullaby drapes itself between the tones like soft silk, harmonizing not with melody but with intention. It does not try to match the grandeur, it honors it. You drift beneath a resonance, so deep you feel it more in your bones than in your ears, and it seems to say, we remember, not what happened, just that it mattered. You pause here, suspended. The hush of the chapel enfolds you. Time loosens again. You begin to feel the presence of others. Not here, not now, but once. Presences who also passed through this place and left no mark but their willingness to listen. The space hums with their echo, not personalities, not names, just tones. Stillness shared, wonder felt, breath released into wind that asked nothing in return. These were not witnesses, they were participants. As you are now, one tone rises slowly to meet you. It is soft, golden, sustained. You feel it press gently into your chest, and in response, the lullaby answers, not with new melody, but by remembering something. You aren't sure what, only that it was soft, kind, important. The resonance does not elaborate. It does not need to. You feel the weight of the unspoken pressed softly against your breath, and you realize, this place is not for understanding, it is for belonging, and you belong, without question, without offering, without definition. You drift deeper into the chapel. The tones shift slightly. The wind above curves a little wider. You pass beneath a great vault of silence, shaped like an endless dome, and in its center, something flickers. Not a light, not a signal, just a single ripple of invitation. You move toward it slowly. The lullaby follows. You remain within the sacred pause for some time, or rather time remains within you, softly curled like the last flicker of a dream that no longer needs to be remembered. The chapel does not change, and neither do you. The stillness deepens, but it does not grow heavy. It is like settling into a perfect silence and realizing it was never empty to begin with. It was full, impossibly full, with presence unspoken and peace never named. When you move again, it is not a decision. It is the natural continuation of a breath held just long enough. The lullaby hums back to life with reverence, each note echoing like footsteps across an endless floor made from shadow and light. As you drift beyond the vault of tones and invisible arches, the chapel recedes, not lost, not diminished, but offered like a candle left burning in a window long after the need for it has passed. You carry its stillness with you, layered now beneath your breath, folded gently inside your spine. The lullaby grows steadier again, but slower, more spacious. It is guiding you not into action, but into disappearance, the next passage on your cosmic journey. Ahead lies space unmarked by light, unmeasured by star. It is the place between destinations, the outer reaches of knowing. The place where every map begins to blur. You are approaching the threshold of the vanishing map. You feel the change not in direction, but in clarity. The stars that once twinkled in distant reference begin to dim. Not from lack of power, but from lack of necessity. You no longer need them to orient yourself. They step back with grace, allowing something else to rise. A silence so wide it contains no coordinates, only permission. The path forward is no longer drawn, it is The lullaby begins to drift into unfamiliar tones, soft dissonances that resolve only through breath. You are being prepared not for arrival, but for unmarking, for entering a region of the cosmos where certainty chooses to rest. Your vessel slows, not from resistance, but from recognition. Around you, the black of space becomes smoother, as if all texture has been sanded away by time. This is not the void. This is what follows the known, the far side of charted dream, a place where explorers once paused, looked outward, and decided not to proceed. Not because they were afraid, but because they understood that some things cannot be mapped without changing them. This space, this threshold, honors that understanding. You drift into it, not to explore, but to disappear gently from definition. There are no markers here, no pulses, no distant galaxies framed by wonder, only a soft, even darkness. But it is not cold, it is hold. And into that holding, the lullaby releases a long tone, low, harmonic, drawn out, as if stretched across an unseen horizon. It does not lead. It simply remembers. You are not following it. You are accompanying it, and together, you drift forward, letting the last edges of the map dissolve behind you like ink in water. Thought begins to change. You no longer think in words. You think in tones, in curves, in slow shifts of meaning that have no sharp angle. Memories begin to stretch, not into stories, but into textures. The feel of a farewell, the weight of a door closed without regret, the softness of eyes closing after hours of wakefulness. These are not recollection. They are the ways your soul has always known how to move when no one was watching. And now, even those begin to quiet. You drift into a space where not even motion defines you. The lullaby sings now, not with melody, but with breath alone. And then slowly, it falls away, not in silence, but in trust. It has brought you here, to the edge of all maps, to the last unspoken sentence, to the pause before the next breath begins. This is not the end, but from here on, even the stars themselves must relearn how to shine. You drift deeper into the unmapped quiet, untethered from star and symbol. Your direction, no longer drawn by gravity, but by intuition so soft it feels like remembering rather than choosing. The threshold of the vanishing map disappears behind you without a sound. It leaves no line, no gate, only a subtle warmth that settles behind your chest, like the ghost of something once known and gently released. You are fully within the space beyond certainty now, and it is not empty. It is alive with calm. The lullaby has become a murmur, resting more within you than around you. It breathes with you, folds with you, becoming the low tide of your journey. And now, as the silence grows textured again, you feel something new, motion without destination, loops without purpose, presence without push. You are entering the hall of forgotten orbits. It does not appear all at once. You begin to sense its rhythm before you sense its shape. Soft gravitational curvatures form around you like sighs, the echo of movements long ago surrendered. These are not planetary or stellar paths. They are smaller, older, personal driftings that once held purpose, now suspended in still, graceful arcs. You pass through their remains, though they are not ruins. They are memories of momentum, each one slowly turning through a quiet, made sacred by how completely it was allowed to stop. These orbits are not abandoned. They were simply allowed to finish. You float near one, an elegant ellipse, almost invisible, drawn only in the way light subtly bends as it crosses through. Your vessel catches part of the curve, and for a moment, you are drawn along its slow rotation. There is no force, no trap, just an invitation to feel what it once felt like to move with intention. You sense the path of someone who once looped this orbit countless times, perhaps for study, perhaps for ritual, perhaps for no other reason than it gave them rhythm. You don't see them, but their pattern remains, imprinted in this ring of quiet persistence. The lullaby follows your drift, harmonizing briefly with the orbit's remembered tone before releasing it with care. As you continue, the hall reveals more of itself, not as architecture but as a lattice of curved stillness, each orbit softly pulsing in its own time. Some are wide and slow, taking whole hours to complete a single cycle. Others are tightly wound, dense with the memory of effort, now faded into calm. You sense the stories behind them, not by event, but by feeling. One orbit hums with the steady patience of a life spent watching. Another carries the quiet ache of hope slowly letting go. Still another glows faintly with the joy of something that was never asked for, but came anyway. You do not name these orbits. That would collapse them. Here, things are kept alive by not defining them. Each one holds what it must. Each one rests because it was permitted to. You drift among them slowly, your vessel now guided less by power than by resonance. It leans into the loops, not tracing them fully, but brushing their edges like a hand trailing through water. The lullaby, softer than ever, adds only a whisper of sound now. A breath, a shimmer, a ripple of tone that affirms but does not disturb. Farther in, you begin to notice orbits with missing pieces, broken loops that do not close. They do not feel tragic. They feel complete in their incompletion. One such orbit begins strongly, a tight circle filled with rhythmic grace, then veers off, its second arc widening and softening into nothing. It didn't fail, it changed its mind. The path curves outward into stillness, the way a dance might fade when the music becomes part of the dancer. You follow its curve briefly and feel it. The moment of choice, the slow acceptance that the pattern was beautiful enough already. You pause near that orbit for a while. Your vessel halts, not in reaction, but in recognition. The space here is thicker, not with matter, but with meaning. This place is not catalogued. It is remembered through breath, through quiet presence. The hall of forgotten orbits is not for monuments. It is for letting go with dignity. The lullaby resonates that truth with a low tone stretched across time, like a final note played until it dissolves into air. And now you sense something unexpected. A new orbit, faint, incomplete, beginning to form behind you. It follows not a track, but a feeling, your own. The slow arc of your passage is leaving a trace, not written in data, but in calm. You are becoming one of them, not as a story, as a pattern of peace. Your orbit will remain here long after your vessel moves on. Not because it must, but because it was allowed to exist, and that is enough. The whole continues without end, but you drift forward, not to escape, but to carry what it offered. The gentle truth that even motion, when loved enough, can be set free. The hall of forgotten orbits fades behind you, not like a door closing, but like a breath released so fully. It leaves behind only stillness. You carry its rhythm in the hush between thoughts, the soft arcs of motion that never needed to complete themselves to be whole. The lullaby hums low and level, its melody now fully fused with your breath, your drift, your ease. It no longer leads. It follows your stillness, shaping itself to your quiet, like water shapes itself around stone. You are farther now than any known star, deeper than any charted dream, and yet, this moment feels closer than any before it. Closer to yourself, closer to the core of rest that has welcomed you again and again across this long, luminous journey. Ahead lies something softer than space, quieter than silence. You feel its presence long before you see it. If see is even the word, there is no light, no shimmer, only a warmth, vast and subtle. Like the final thoughts before sleep takes hold, the lullaby lowers its voice again, humming a phrase so slow, so round, it begins to feel like the shape of the moment itself. You are approaching what might be the end, but not a stopping point. A horizon that waits with eyes closed. A place not of closure, but of completion. The space where breath goes when it no longer needs to return. Where motion ends not because it was stopped, but because it became peace. You drift into it, and it receives you fully, with no resistance, no edge. It is like falling into the softest place inside yourself. The moment just after the world fades, and just before dreaming begins. This horizon is not a line. It is a space that folds inward, gently, infinitely. You are not crossing into it. You are becoming part of it. The lullaby plays its last long chord, holding it steady, 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 and then even that fades, not into silence, but into knowing, into stillness so complete, it no longer needs sound to carry you. You are weightless here, not because gravity has failed, but because you no longer need to be held. This place, the horizon, the final curve, is where time pauses to admire what it has and in that pause you feel the entire journey behind you. The rings of Saturn you passed, like drifting pearls, the whispering nebula where stars were born in silence, the vault of unspoken light, the chapel beneath the cosmic wind, the tides that never touched shores. They are all here with you, not replaying, not recounting, simply present, like guests attending your final descent into sleep. They do not wave, they do not weep, they do not speak. They surround you with the softest truth of all. You were always meant to arrive here, and you have. The horizon holds you now. No memory that needs to be remembered, just rest, just peace, just presence. And as your drift slows to a stop, if it can even be called that, the stars hum one last time, low and far and full of love. They do not wake you, they do not send you back, they just remain, like the last light beneath closed eyes. Good night, traveler.